recording.
We're live. Tell your friends you're listening to the Verhoeven Effect podcast. I'm Conlon.
And I'm Nathan.
And tonight we have a very special episode. We have the 1981 movie Escape from New York. Nathan, what's your history with Escape from New York?
Oh, I've probably watched this one like hundreds of times. This is a movie I watched. I kind of, as a younger kid, I categorized this as like one of the better in the 80s apocalypse movies.
Yeah.
Even though it's not really like an apocalypse, so like there's bad stuff going on, and the world's at a bleak period.
I mean, it's falling apart. They're just like, and fascism is the last government left. It's on the brink of falling apart. So
yeah, and this is a movie like there's a lot of Armageddon themed movies that came out in the 80s that were B movies, and this also is kind of in that category, but this is like the best of them.
Oh yeah, this is like
it makes the most of what it has.
Yeah, I mean, even though it's like still like they're doing the most of what they have. At the time this was made, this was like the largest independent movie ever made. So they still had stuff, but it wasn't.
This movie had like a lot of names, and innovations that came out at the time, and of course a convenient like riot/fire in St. Louis, which like gave this movie got massive production value for a $6 million production budget.
Yeah.
Because there's only 2 scenes shot in New York. Everything else was shot in St. Louis and Los Angeles. So, but yeah, I've seen this movie probably, like I said, as a kid in the 80s, it was a cool apocalypse movie, and then later in life, it's one of those movies where like I've never seen myself as a filmmaker, but if I could imagine making a movie, it would be a movie that employed a lot of the stuff from this, including the sarcasm, the anti-authoritarianism, the humor, and just a very bleak, unrelentingly sad movie, which is like kind of like that for some reason.
Yeah, I probably saw Escape from L.A. before I even saw Escape from New York. I always saw bits and pieces of it on like TBS and things like that, but I don't think I actually watched it all the way through until I was like I don't know, like 15 years ago or something like that.
Oh, okay.
And even this time through, like I kind of have like a different take on it, I guess. Came out July 10th, 1981. Second July movie in a row.
Yeah. Rolling out against Indiana Jones.
Oh, okay. That's what. Okay. There's a lot of famous years in movies in the 80s of just a bunch of great movies. Of course, if you ask like Tarantino and a bunch of other people, they'll tell you like the 80s was a shit time for movies. Which I guess that's like there wasn't a lot of like we're pushing the art form movies. There are just a lot of like audience, we're like making the audience happy movies, which I guess you're not pushing the medium if you're making the audience happy. Yeah, if you have
Quentin Tarantino brain, I can guarantee the 80s were a shit time for movies. But as an audience member, it's like, it was actually kind of a cool time.
Short, fun movies.
Yes. 90 minutes or less. Guaranteed.
Of course, it's directed by John Carpenter, who's like easily could have called this podcast that. He's one of those directors where, like, I mean, he literally makes B movies, but he makes like the best B movies. So
yeah, I have a Carpenter trilogy of his movies I love and will watch again and again and again. It's Halloween, this, and The Thing.
Yeah.
There's some other movies he makes that I like.
I mean, I pretty much like all his movies. Like even Ghost of Mars, which is kind of a piece of shit, is like fun.
Yeah, no, I enjoy it. But I won't like, ooh, Ghost of Mars is on. It's like, no, I've seen it. But this movie, it's like, yeah.
Well, I can't wait till sometime when we do vampires, because I remember everyone hating that, like even like Carpenter fans, and I remember I liked it. But I remember the only thing I really liked it for is because like the methodology spent on like dispatching vampires. I thought like, oh, cool, they don't do this.
Yeah.
So I bet if I watched it, I will also come to the conclusion that, oh yeah, this sucks. But I remember liking it.
I don't actually think any John Carpenter movies suck. Like where it's like, oh, I would give that 1 star out of 1 star. There are some that I will watch over and over and over again, and others I won't. Ghost of Mars is, again, it's cool. The Mouth of Madness is actually a lot cooler than it's known to be, if you pay attention to things. Also, if you're into H.P. Lovecraft and like interdimensional horror, it's like, oh, that's a really good movie. But some people don't like that kind of horror. They like more straightforward, less abstract.
Yeah, that's the ones I haven't seen. The Mouth of Madness, and is that the one with not Ed O'Neill? Who's the guy from Sam Neill?
Yeah, that's him.
Does he have another one he does with Sam Neill?
Krakow. I don't know.
Because there's like his sort of like, I don't know, Madness trilogy, but like there's In the Mouth of Madness, and there's like a 3 in a row I've just never seen, which people seem to be kind of here or there on.
Let's see, Prince of Darkness.
Yeah, that's one of them.
Yeah, I'm not. Who's in that?
Which I think that's one is also kind of like Lovecraftian, where it's like scientists are unearthing Satan or something like that.
Yeah, it's like scientists understand, like, oh, we found hell.
Yeah, it's basically the precursor to Event Horizon.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah, it's weird that Sam Neill is also in that. Yeah, there is not a movie of his that I, like.
Well, Escape from LA is probably the worst, but even that's. I love the ending to Escape from LA. I think that's, in my mind, that redeems it. Is like to go through all that shit to get to that ending. It's like, brilliant.
Well, that's how I described like the 2020 election. It's like, oh, I'm Snake Plissken. It's like, well, which side wins, yours or theirs, or do we just like set off the EMP? And I was like, well, maybe the EMP would be the best choice.
But I remember there's been multiple podcasts that kind of talk about Carpenter and like saying that he like gave up after The Thing, which I feel is like kind of a bit going tue far, but like
that's a strong statement. I mean, that's I don't think you can back that very well.
Well, I mean he still makes good movies after that, but like it's their theory is that like he went through so much shit to get that movie made, and then it bombed at the box office, and also it was critically panned, and so he just like, well then screw that, I'm not gonna do this anymore. I'm just gonna do what I like, and I'm not gonna try to push the medium, I guess, or anything like that. And then it goes on to like 20 years later, it's like, oh, this is one of the best movies of all time, and like, and all the critics are basically, I don't guess I don't know what I was thinking. I guess these special effects affected me too much that I couldn't say it was a good movie or something. But
well, I mean, my thing with the thing is, I do agree. Like, I think it was, I don't know if it was Ebert or Siskel. Somebody said it's hopeless, gross, and mean.
Yeah.
And it's like, it is. Actually, you're correct. That's what makes it cool.
Yeah.
That you missed the point at some but also that was through very different eyes that are very, because you're talking about like, when you're talking about like The Thing, and try to imagine when that came out, like that was a single viewing experience you would have in a theater.
Yeah.
Unless you were willing to go back to, that was made to be watched and dissected on a DVD at home. With dinner, with friends, and talked about and stuff like that. That was not made to like, oh, popcorn, let's watch this. This dog has turned into a sack of pus, and it's like spraying a fire hose of jizz all around the cage. Like, that's horrifying. I don't want. But then then you watch it like 5 times and reflect on it. Like, oh, okay, that's actually kind of cool. And it's like the most horrifying enemy you could imagine. It's more scary than like Alien. Like it's like actually worse. So it's like, yeah, it was a great movie, but it was like a shovel to the face if you were like, I'm going to see a good horror movie. And it's like, this is definitely horrifying. Yes. But I don't know. I don't imagine that would be a pleasant theater experience back then. Now it would be cool. I know they just re-released it.
I went and saw it. Although apparently it was broadcasted wrong. So I enjoyed it. So
played at the wrong ratio or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
I forget the company, but they have a bunch of those re-releases where it's like, 2 showings this weekend, for Wrath of the Khan or something like that, and go to your local theater and see it. It's like, cool. So, So I forget like how different it was. A completely different experience watching in the theater, but I was also like like my 10th time watching the movie or something. So I was like, I never actually got to once you start watching it a second or third time, it's kind of like on the background. You're not like analyzing it. And now I'm back to like I have to analyze this, and so I'm like following more of the characters around and like trying to guess, okay, well, who's been where and what and thing like that. And then like it becomes more interesting and different when you have to
Oh
like
yeah, there's a whole thing Venn diagram universe of like when did the characters become the things, and it's
yeah.
like what happened, and it's like more complicated than like the primer like time travel loop. It's like, oh, okay. Some people really spend a lot of time just frame by frames analysis. Yeah.
um, the cinematographer is Dean Cundy, who has a wild history. um, there was like he worked together a lot. He worked with Carpenter a lot. He worked with Zemeckis a lot. He shot Jurassic Park.
Okay.
He shot Apollo 13, so I worked there. So he's still working. Now he's kind of in TV. It seemed to be like the late 90s and the 2000s did not do him well. It seems like almost every movie he did around then I don't recognize or isn't good. So, but now he's last few years he's been directing stuff for Disney, doing The Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett TV shows, shooting those shows. So, still
Oh,
working.
okay. That's cool. He's working on something cool.
But yeah, you look up. I guess like yeah, it looked like he started as like a B movie guy. I'm not sure if it was like Corman. It looked like it was a different, because you have like what's some of the.
Let's see what Satan's cheerleaders were.
Yeah, that's yeah.
All about. That sounds interesting. That's 7.
Yeah, the first one I recognize is of course
It's a Dimension film.
Okay. Halloween's the first movie of his I recognize. Then you got Rock and Roll High School. Then you got The Fog, so he's back with Carpenter. Escape from New York. These aren't in a row. These are just the ones I recognize as I'm going up the list. Halloween 2 without Carpenter. And then the next year, The Thing with Carpenter. Then the same year, Halloween 3 without Carpenter. Well, no, actually, I can't remember if he did. I can't remember if he did 3 or not. I don't think he did 3. No.
Yeah, he did.
He directed 3? No, I mean Carpenter. He didn't do 3.
No. Tommy, who directed that? Tommy Lee Wallace directed that.
Okay. So Psycho 2. That's one we probably got to analyze at some point.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I remember seeing bits of that, and it's like, oh, this isn't as terrible as you think it would be.
Well, it's kind of interesting in a way. I mean, it's when you appreciate there's like what a 20-year gap.
Yeah.
It's like weird.
It does Romancing the Stone with Zemeckis and 84. Oh, he does all the Back to the Futures.
Warning Sign. That's a weird one.
What's Warning Sign?
That's the one where they're making bioweapons at this underground lab somewhere, and it makes you a psychotic killer.
Huh.
And they have a breakout at the lab, but the one lady's not affected because she's pregnant, so like her body rejects the virus, and that's how you cure it, or the disease, or whatever it is. It's an interesting movie. It's very paranoid, kind of underground shoot, because it's set in an underground lab, so it's very claustrophobic. She has to fight her way through scientists that are just being driven insane by their drug.
It does Big Trouble in Little China with Carpenter again. Project X.
That's a happy one.
I always remember that movie. I don't know. He did Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which that's a terribly complicated movie that he had to be responsible for. So. Roadhouse, why not? The other 2 Back to the Future movies. He does Hook with Spielberg, does Death Become Her with Zemeckis, and then does Jurassic Park with Spielberg. Which, did he win the Oscar for that? Has he won an Oscar? He had to. He's like, some of these movies are too good.
Let me see.
Yeah, it looks like Apollo 13 is like his last good movie in 95. I goes, he's a cinematographer. They're probably all fine after that, but like it's like a good movie he's associated with. Some stuff I recognize after them, but it's not
He
great.
was nominated for Roger Rabbit, Hook, Apollo 13. He's never won.
Huh.
He's won an Emmy Award for The Face of Jesus show. He's won Lifetime Achievement and Society of Camera Operators Awards. Huh. He was probably up against some really stiff like competition.
Yeah, probably. But yeah, that's one of those. Well, I remember like we did Pretty in Pink, and that guy had a crazy catalog where he like worked with Zemeckis and another guy, and it's like, wait, he cut his teeth on Pretty in Pink. Yeah, I wasn't expecting that. Of course, it's written by John Carpenter.
Another thing for this movie with the cinematographer is a new lens and film setup came out like just right before this movie.
Oh, really? Okay.
You could shoot at night extensively with it without light the hell out of everything, which was really they wanted it that way because, like I said, darkness is good production value on a low budget.
Yeah.
So this movie looks. If you pay attention, once you know that and you watch this movie, it's like, oh, that's kind of unique. It almost has that whole. I mean, the whole movie looks like it's like, are they lighting everything with black lights? Like, what are they doing here? And it's I don't know what it's called. I'm not a camera operator lens guy, but it was some kind of amorphic lens that you could shoot a lot more at night.
Oh yeah, is it amorphic or anamorphic?
One of those terms.
Okay, it might be. It's probably just. I mean, if I could think about it, it's probably just a bigger lens that is able to grab more light. Yeah, that would be my guess, but who knows?
Yeah.
Because there's stuff like that. And then this is written by John Carpenter and Nick Castle. Who's like, he has an interesting career. I was expecting this guy just worked. Yeah, he worked with Carpenter a bit. Or is it just, I don't know, did he just do this movie together? Yeah,
I've heard his name before.
Oh wait, no, he wrote or did he write Halloween as well? I don't know, what is it? No, he's not right now. For some reason, he's associated with Halloween Kills.
Okay.
I can't. Oh, did he?
He had an acting role in that.
Oh, okay, all right.
He played Michael Myers.
Oh, he did? Huh. That's weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, some of his directing stuff is like, oh, well, there's two things I recognize. There's The Last Starfighter. He directed that. I think he might have wrote that too, maybe. No, just directed it. But that was a movie of my childhood. The other one I recognize, this one was always in my childhood. I had no idea if it's a good movie. The Boy Who Could Fly. I'm not sure if you've ever seen that movie.
I do remember that. Yeah.
I mostly remember because in that movie,
isn't like his life horrible and.
Yeah, he's like autistic, and then Fred Savage is in there. Is like I think is his brother. I just remember that movie. Fred Savage had cool toys in that movie, so I guess that's what most attracted me to that movie. And then at some point he does like fly, but it's always like everyone's just calling him stupid and stuff. And then eventually I think he flies at the end of the movie. I can't even remember. It's
like no one really believes in him. I think his mom does, and he just like takes off flying, and she's really happy. As I vaguely remember that. Actually, okay, Nick Castle didn't actually play Michael Myers. He was like a stand-in for him when he was in the window and he did the breathing sounds.
Oh, okay.
He was a whole different actor that actually played Michael Myers. Because as soon as I said that, I was like, wait, no, that guy doesn't look the same as the guy.
Yeah, I was like, oh, do you get into bodybuilding?
No, not the same guy. But he did do some stand-in work.
Also, he directed Major Payne, Nick Castle, which that's probably an underrated movie for how many quotes escape that movie without credit.
Damon Wayans.
Yep.
Movie. Okay, yeah.
There's a bunch of stuff that's
crazy. The Menace. That one. They actually made a lot of money, as I remember.
Well, yeah, and then it seems like Mr. Wrong ended his career, essentially, because everything after that I don't recognize at all.
Ellen DeGeneres.
Yeah, the Ellen DeGeneres getting married to the wrong man movie. Yeah.
That was in '96. Okay, yeah, it was still illegal to be gay in '96.
But I remember Major Payne. Like, well, that's Major Payne is the movie that makes me like never want to see a Medea movie.
Okay.
So yeah, maybe we'll just work up our bravery to watch one of those movies one time. But because every time I see a trailer for a Medea movie, it looks like shit. It's like this is just rehashed garbage, and she's literally saying lines from Major Payne, and then people are like, "It's like why? That's derivative. Why would you?" I mean, it could be just completely out of context, and the people knew how to sell the movie. It's like, yeah, just put the lines that people like in the trailer. I mean, I may be completely out of context. I don't know. Um, but yeah, it's like, oh yeah, this is just stealing from other movies. There's no reason for me to watch this. This is just a worse Big Mama house. Of course, the cast is we got Kurt Russell, Lee Van Cleef, and Ernest Borgnine. And a bunch of other people come on top. There's some strange credits in this movie, and I'm like, why are they listed like that? And then we'll find out.
Daniel Pleasance.
Oh yeah, Donald
Isaac
Pleasance.
Hayes, as the younger generation would know him as the voice of Chef from something.
Till Chef died.
Yeah, it's a whole sad odyssey.
Yeah, it was weird. In the break room today, they had South Park playing. It was almost kind of weird that the swearing that was going on at like noon. It's like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. Because they don't bleep shit anymore, but they do bleep the F word. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that would be weird. It's like, noontime shit. Interesting. Just in time for lunch.
I think because I forgot I didn't grab the second guy, but of course the music of this is done by John Carpenter and some other guy that I forgot to credit, but I'm not sure their involvement. But usually Carpenter does his own scores, but
yeah,
of course somebody helps. I don't know if you get deep into like the score industry, there's actually there's like basically like 5 names, and they don't necessarily do the work. They just have like understudies that do all the work, and then they put their name on it. That's the simplistic way I've heard about that industry. So
okay, it actually makes sense because they probably have just a quartet of people going through, and it's like, okay, you take a pass at this, you take a pass.
Yeah.
Alan Horwath.
Okay.
Howarth.
Does he have any other credits to his name?
Yeah, Star Trek.
Okay.
The Halloween series. He's known for his collaborations with film director and composer John Carpenter.
So okay, so you worked with him a bit. Okay.
Star Trek, the motion picture sound effects creator. Countdown, which is where the aircraft carrier goes back to World War II. He was a sound effects and a composer. Battle Beyond the Stars, special sound effects. Escape from New York, sound effects music composer.
Oh, so he's kind of like a B-movie composer guy. Okay.
Wrath of Khan, Poltergeist, National Lampoon's sound effects guy. And let's see, Halloween 3 composer, Christine composer.
Okay. Yeah.
And then electronic sound designer in Osterman Weekend, which had kind of a early techno vibe soundtrack.
Huh.
It's kind of a weird movie. Yeah, it seems like a lot of sound effects and like what you call backing music.
Yeah.
Which is how it's credited. I can imagine what that means in my mind, but I don't know if I'm saying it right. So.
Yeah, I just it's like that's always the thing that Carpenter gets known for, is being like this triple threat of like he directs, he writes, and he composes. It's like, of course, like when you're, that's what makes him like a consummate indie director, is because like he has to take on too many roles to save money.
He's a triple threat. It's like, no, he's making a movie for $5 million. He's what you call he takes one hat off and another is under it.
Which, yeah, I mean, that's why, you feel bad that like The Thing didn't work out, because that was one of his like most expensive, movies. He's working with Hollywood, and it's like it didn't work out. It's like, well, I guess I'll never do that again.
Yeah, there's a vibe I get from Carpenter though, is like the anti-authoritarian stuff with him is not just like a artifact of his writing or maybe some personal belief he has. I think he also kind of lives that in a certain way.
Yeah.
It's like kind of like the guys from the do South Park are like, we hate the movie industry, but we have to work in it, but we just keep them at an arm's length.
Yeah.
We just do acid, build Legos, and write South Park, and we have the most like firewalled contract agreements you can have. You don't ever want to talk to these people, and it's like, oh, okay, yeah.
What is?
And when you look at their output and his output, it's like, yeah, it reflects that too.
Do you know like his family background? Because I always assumed him as being Hispanic. So I don't know if he's ever like if he's like encountered racism or anything like that. If that's to be true, I actually don't know.
I don't know.
Because for some reason, I also like mirror together as Robert Rodriguez as sort of like the new John Carpenter, which he's clearly like Hispanic and Mexican and stuff like that, or Mexican heritage. I don't know about Carpenter. I always got that. For some reason, I got that feeling from him.
He was born in Carthage, New York, to Milton Gene Carter and Howard Ralph Carpenter. His dad was a college music professor. He moved to Bowling Green, Kentucky. His dad was a professor at Western Kentucky.
Huh.
A music guy. John Carpenter was interested in films from an early age, particularly westerns, which like that shows because there's a lot of like western stars in this movie.
Yeah, like Assault on Precinct 13 is just a western in modern times. So
yeah,
I mean it's literally Rio Bravo. It's just that.
So he went to the same school his dad taught at. He has an English major with a history minor. No filmmaking classes were offered in Kentucky. So he just dropped out of school. Then he he transferred to UC, Southern California. And he dropped out his senior year to start making his Dark Star. So it's like, okay. Yeah. So anyway, and from back to what I was saying is like, yeah, I just don't, I think there's a lot of like, he didn't get the chance and he was a brilliant artist, but I also think he didn't like working with studios because he didn't like to be told what to do, which in his case is like, yeah, it kind of works because it's like only he can do. No one's ever made his movies. Like there's people that love him, tried, but it's like there's always a unique, it's a combination of how they look and the humor that plays through them generally.
Well, the thing I always was like, what spawned this is like I was asking if like I didn't know if he was Hispanic or not. I'm guessing not. Just some white guy. No, there's something like it's the what makes a lot of John Carpenter stuff brilliant is its simplicity.
Yeah.
Where it's like every movie he makes is like, yeah, why didn't somebody make this movie?
Yeah, I mean, like I said at the earlier, like Escape from New York is the only movie I've seen where I like kind of put myself in the director's chair, and not that I would want to do a shot-for-shot remake of Escape from New York. That would be weird. But I mean, it's like, oh, something like this, like just as lean and fast as it is, it implies a darker universe, but you have to like kind of either imagine it for yourself or look for material if you want to.
This is what almost makes it seem like a 70s movie is the fill in your gap movie.
Yeah,
they give you a little bit and then you fill in the rest, which some people would like. I don't know, some people would hate that. Like, of course, modern audiences would hate that. It's like,
I love it. I always have.
Yeah, because I mean, there's a cheap way to do that and there's a good way to do that, and like nobody can tell you until the movie's out whether it's going to work or not. It's just one of those things where it's like,
it's a chance. It's not money in the bank. It's like you're taking a chance with that.
Like the zeitgeist will reward you or it will destroy you, and you have no idea which way it'll go until it comes out. Which that's exactly what the Verhoeven Effect is. It's like people will either take it and make it more than what it is, or they'll absolutely destroy it. So we got Act 1. We got a slow rising synth score and black and white credits, which is actually, this credit sequence is like really long, and I don't know why. It seems like, usually sometimes that's a clue that a movie was like ran out of time and budget when the credits are too long because they need to like push the runtime.
Well, just to completely destroy what we just last said, not a lot of exposition in this movie, yet a lot of exposition in this movie, including this long, This kind of opening credits, though, this was sort of a thing in the 80s that went away. They don't do this anymore.
Yeah, well, I was sitting there trying to think, because like, why is this so long? And I'm trying to think of like, are people getting popcorn and stuff like that? Because that's, in like, especially back in the time when you still had drive-in theaters, that was probably a consideration.
Yeah, that could be.
I know we actually like had access to like one of the last drive-in theaters, and like if you've probably if you're young and never had that experience, there was kind of a lead up time to getting all the cars to the gate that would take a while, and then you'd have to get your popcorn and stuff like that, which takes a while because the walk to the concession stand is much larger in a drive-in.
It's more like being in a football game than a movie theater. So,
and there were always you were always paired up with two movies, and you decided, well, you had to decide whether you're going to watch both or not. So that was always a decision.
Yeah, if you've never been drunk at a drive-in movie theater in Mosquito Hell watching like Crimson Tide, haven't lived.
I remember the greatest one is like we watched Twister at the drive-in theater and it was lightning out.
Yeah, it's like this movie has the best special effects I've ever seen.
And there's the bit where a Twister hits a drive-in theater while we're at the drive-in theater.
We had an out-of-body experience without even on anything. It's amazing.
I guess I should also mention, because I'm looking at it right now, a great poster, not in the movie.
Yeah, no. The Statue of Liberty does appear, and map images of New York appear. But that's it, yeah.
But the head is not in the middle of Manhattan.
That didn't happen until
Cloverfield.
Finally got that in Cloverfield.
But yeah, so over the credits we got some bits of the score. I'll try to recreate it here, being that I got my synth there. We actually have just a little of this, which is actually just the thing.
Yeah.
But then we add a little bit of this. We got which will go out throughout the movie, and a great little synth beat there. So it's much more complicated than the thing, but being that we can't play music on here, every once in a while I try to bring the music to the podcast with the keyboard. So.
Yeah.
Which I did that with the thing, so I'll probably do that with all Carpenter stuff. We'll eventually do. Or did we do it? Yeah, we did the thing for this podcast, didn't we? Yeah, we had to have.
That's not. Well, I don't know if we have for this one. I don't know.
Because I remember playing the, or maybe
don't. Yeah. I don't
yeah.
know if we did.
Okay. Maybe I only talked about it when I watched it in theaters. Maybe that's when I brought it up.
Oh, that might be it. Yeah.
Let me go to my handy dandy things and movies I've already done. See if we've done the thing. I'll do Control F the thing. Nope.
I haven't done it yet. Okay, I didn't think so. I mean, I'm sure like on other podcasts we've talked about it.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah. I think we've done it for a Greed Factory one time, and then I know we talked about another Greed Factory when I went and watched it in theaters. So that must have been where I decided to bust out the old synth.
Old synthesizer. Which is nice to have a little music.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, he's like one of the first...
And by the way, everyone, to show how beautifully simplistic, like John Carpenter themes are, it was like my brother taught himself how to play this thing, and he can pretty much reproduce it that well,
Yeah.
So it's like, it's amazingly simple and fun.
Yeah.
What he does with sound, with his
synthesizer.
Yeah. Yeah, because it sounds futuristic and wild, but actually if you break it down, it's like, it's just easy production.
Well, yeah, and one guy can do it. Because like what the synth allows you to do, because like if you actually look at the full buildup of it, you would need six keyboards to play the song. But with the synthesizer, you can basically lay down one track and then play it while you're playing the next track, and then go back and do that, layer it all together, and you can basically have a whole orchestra on your one synthesizer. Which I can just imagine John Carpenter smoking, figuring out his synthesizer.
Yeah, this movie brought to you by Marlboro Red.
Which a lot of that why that synth stuff took off in the '80s is because it was cheaper to produce. I mean, synthesizers were horribly expensive, but when you got them in kind of like these smaller form factors, like I got here, rather than like it takes up like an entire bathroom to have one.
Yeah.
You could do production at home, and like when Apple computers came out, made it even, you know, like basically Apple. If you don't have Apple computers, you probably don't have like modern rap.
Yeah. Yeah, it changed. Yeah, the synthesizers in the '80s changed, and they also it was like a futuristic sound. It's like, well, this isn't a piano, that's just like the theremin. Like it was a staple of '50s sci-fi. Well, it sounds weird and futuristic. No one's doing it anymore, but it's like back then it was like, whoa, 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 whoa. It's like, oh, that's cool. That's the future.
But like any weird German guy in the '80s could just go into a closet with a synthesizer and come out with a hit album. Like that's just what you could do back then. Like it was which now you can do with modern editing and stuff like that. People can do even more crazy things, but now the music industry is so confusing and dead and alive in some ways that just nobody finds these people anymore.
Well, yeah, a lot of it's like, what do you call it? It's like driven, like vocals now are the thing.
Yeah.
It's like, I almost your top 10 musicians in the country, like 9 of them probably have never played a musical instrument at one time or another. Then you got people like Taylor Swift who are like insanely talented and can play multiple musical instruments and also write some of their own music and then collaborate with other people. And it's a mixed bag, but it's not Pink Floyd or Jethro Tull either. It's kind of its own thing.
But
those people spent 30 years playing musical instruments to produce like 4 amazing songs. That doesn't happen anymore. But.
Oh, I mean, those things exist now, but like in a complete vacuum.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody out there has like the next Pink Floyd album, and they will produce it, and nobody will know. Because they're called like Richard's Toenails or something like
that. They're like they're just like musical autists that like it's like I can't look people in the eye, so I can't promote myself. But here's like pure genius. It's just on a hard drive somewhere, waiting to be found.
Yeah, it's the Bitcoin of the music industry. So yeah, we get the credits go away. We get titles. It says 1988, the crime rate in the United States rose 400%. Manhattan Island.
Jamie Lee Curtis is narrating this too.
Oh, she is? Okay. Yeah. Manhattan Island has been walled off and turned into a prison. No guards inside the prison. All the bridges and tunnels are mined. And then we get titled 1997 now. Now, of course, this whole like walling off a thing and it becomes a prison has been used to ad nauseum. It's like I'm not sure if it started here, but like everyone after this has purely ripping it off for this reason.
Yeah.
Which is the other thing that makes this movie great is like there's actually like too many ideas in this movie, and because they don't really dive into any of them, somehow it just works. Like it's letting you figure out what it means.
Yeah, you have the best like just ADHD backdrops in this movie. Of, like, you're thinking about that and something's going on screen. It's like, wait, what happened? Okay, we're doing this now, because it's like I'm still trying to understand. Like, it's like that seems like they closed off the financial district and made it a prison. It's like, huh? Okay, things must be really weird.
Well, also, it's just the thing where it's like any one of these ideas could have just been a whole movie unto itself.
Oh, yeah.
Like the prison, New York Island, could have just been a whole movie unto itself, just about like the features and that going on. But then you add like, oh, the president is lost in the prison. Like that's another idea. This whole fascist society and how it works. It's like, that's another movie. The whole timed explosive in your artery thing. That's a movie.
Yeah. It's all been done since, like several times.
Oh, yeah. And people got sued for it, too.
Yeah, John Carpenter had a few. He had what do you call those? The Harlan Ellison moments with people.
Yeah.
It's like, you stole from me. It's like, no, that's a general idea. It's like, no, I'm going to take you to court and prove like you stole from me. It's like, oh shit, he won.
Yeah.
He proved it. Damn it.
Yeah, he sued Luc Besson for Lockout, which is where the space prison movie where the president's daughter gets lost there.
Yeah. They could have just tweaked that a little bit and got away with it. It's like, no.
Well,
no.
I don't think he sued him in American courts. He sued him in like European courts where they're like he's more likely to win there.
Right.
But obviously, like, this character heavily influences like the Metal Gear Solid franchise, and people ask John Carpenter, is like, well, why didn't you sue Hideo Kojima? And he was like, because he's cool.
Yeah, well, like he did, so and he imagined like future movies with the Snake Plissken character beyond just the one. Like he's hoping if this was a success, he could follow up with other adventures in this universe. And it didn't happen. And he said, yeah, well, Metal Gear Solid kind of continued the Snake Plissken character in another way because I didn't really get to. So yeah, I've heard him say that in interviews before.
Do you remember 1997, Nathan? Do you remember being a particular hellhole? Did Carpenter project that to predict that?
No, that was like the high time of the Clinton super economy. You could buy, like, everyone had like unlimited credit at no interest, and the economy was growing faster than it did in the 1950s. I mean, the whole bottoms got sucked out of it 8 years later, but yeah, I think crime was still higher than it is now.
Yeah.
So I know the 80s and the 90s were like insane for like violent crime. Like casual crime was a lot more prevalent back then. It was also a lot less reported too. So it was actually even more crime than what you thought, because you like someone would commit a crime against you and then you just go like commit other crimes to reclaim what you lost. And none of these things would be reported because you committed other crimes. And never mind, I'm talking about too much stuff, but you know. Yeah, that's. I know. I don't remember 1997 being a particularly bad time.
But I mean, this New York in this movie is a reflection of like what 70s New York was. It's like, all right, let's extrapolate what's going to happen in the future based on
this screenplay was written in 1975.
Okay.
So this was more about like Nixon's government than it was Reagan's. So, because I think Reagan would have just been elected president at the time this came out. So
he would have been elected in 80 and put into office in 81, right? That's how it works. Yeah. So by January, so he'd been in office like 6 months at this time. Yeah.
Everyone knew he was a fascist, but they just didn't know what form.
We fade into a Jeep pulling up alongside the prison wall. We see Manhattan Island without power. It's revealed. I like how like a lot of these matte paintings here, like it reminds me mostly of Terminator, which guess who worked on this movie? I don't know if the matte paintings here are done by him, but some of the matte paintings in this movie are done by James Cameron.
John Carpenter said that. Oh yeah, James Cameron did some of these. He said because I don't know when the commentary for this was recorded, but he's like he later went on to do Terminator. So it's like, but I don't know when this was like. Released.
Well, at this time, Cameron was like a effects guy for Corman, so like he knew how to work fast with special effects. It was probably around the time he got like fired from making Piranha 2 or something like that, and then went on to do Terminator. There's a great I have his it's not really a biography, but it's almost where he has like all his painting, because like Cameron used to like make like he was a good drawer and he would draw posters for these like B movies. That's how he made money. And he'd have it down to a science of like how long it would take him to produce it and how much money he was getting out of it, so he'd know like if it was worth his time or not. And eventually, like I think I forget, it was either like a Canadian university or some other university. Like he didn't go there, like as a student, he just went there and got like all these books on making movies, and that's how he learned about special effects and stuff like that. Again, I might be getting that wrong, and that might just be the mythology I'm pushing forward. I don't think James Cameron actually went to college or anything like that. Let's see where we're at.
Yeah, because he's from Canada, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Let me see. You might have gone to one of those weird Canadian colleges where it's like, yeah, you can go for free, but I mean, you can't get a job anywhere.
Yeah.
You go to college there. Oh, he was studying physics.
Oh, okay.
He left college in '74 after a year. So yeah, essentially he went to college, went from physics to English, and then he decided he became a truck driver and a high school janitor, and then he liked to do weed and LSD, and then he got into like special effects and yeah. So he he went to the University of South Carolina library and got all kinds of books about film technology and learned about it. And when he saw Star Wars, he quit being a truck driver and was like, I'm working in pictures. So it's like that's his Wikipedia thing, so it's a very compelling story. I hope it's true because that's cool. But
what's the like Corman ripoff of Star Wars, like something Beyond the Stars or something like that?
Battle Beyond the Stars. Yeah,
I think he did the special effects for that movie.
Okay.
Which I remember people saying that, like, for a B movie, the special effects in that movie are pretty good. So
that's actually kind of a cool movie if you like science fiction. Not perfect, but it's like it's sort of cool. It's like
doesn't the spaceship kind of look like a ball sack? I've
yeah,
never seen
it's really weird. There's all kinds of weird stuff like that. Or a pair of boobs, depending on
okay,
you get from. It's like, that, and you know it's on purpose. Hey, as a kid watching it, you don't know, but as an adult, you're like, oh, they're having
fun. But yeah, it's night in Manhattan. Like all the power is out, so it is very interesting looking because it's sort of like black sky and then kind of like blue buildings, but you know it's all darkness. But you can separate them, so it does have an interesting look to it. Also, very Terminator-esque.
Yes.
And we got the helicopter heads out as some prisoners are trying to paddle boat their way out of the prison. And they tell them to turn back, fire a rocket at them. They don't turn back, or I guess they just panic, and then the helicopter just blows them up and leaves.
Yeah.
So it's just showing that, like, yeah, there's no way out of here.
You're establishing a very brutal world.
Yeah. We're back at base. We follow Remy. He's part of Liberty Island Security Control. So this is where like the base for the cops are set up, which
the
is
United States Police Force.
Yeah,
that's what they're called.
Because they're more of an army than they are cops. They're not prison guards. They're not that. Because they have a bunch of helicopters and everything. But yeah, their base is that's the Statue of Liberty, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yep, that's Liberty Island. Yeah, that's where they filmed. Well, okay. Their base was in California, but for the movie, it's supposed to be on Liberty Island.
Okay.
But actually, they just got on Liberty Island to shoot the Statue of Liberty real quick.
Okay. Yeah, because the rest of it's like that dam, and like I don't know if there's a dam on Liberty Island.
No, that's a reservoir. I forget what that's called. They shot like all kinds of movie stuff there.
Okay.
But yeah. Yeah, because that's where the guys in the boat escaping was actually shot at that reservoir. There's a name for it.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if it's the Spellman Aqueduct or something. And it's been in a lot of movies. You know it.
A bus pulls up through the helicopter. There's a lot of helicopters in this movie. This is like
the Missouri National Guard was really excited to be extras in the movie, and they're like, hey, can we use helicopters? They're like, yeah, you can use our helicopters. They had a lot of production value for helicopters that they could fly around.
Yeah, I think this is just before like helicopters almost got like banned from Hollywood because like 3 people got killed on the Twilight Zone movie.
Zone, yeah. 3 people got killed horribly, got like weed eater killed by a helicopter. Like, oh, the worst way you can die by a helicopter. So everyone ducks when they get out, which you don't need to do because blades are like spinning.
Yeah, it was an adult and 2 children too. So
yeah, it was horrifying. You should see the photos from it. It's like terrifying.
Yeah, the guards all have.
It was all completely avoidable too, because they said, "Hey, don't shoot it that way. That's really dangerous." Yeah. Like all the helicopter experts are like, "That thing will get sucked into the water hovering like that." It's like it can fly over it, but if it hovers, it's just going to create this weird vortex. Or boom. That's also why we lost a helicopter when they killed Bin Laden, because it was a stealth helicopter and it had weird characteristics. Yeah. But basically, they stuck themselves to the ground if you hover too long, which I didn't know. I was like, okay, cool. I thought that's what they were designed to do, was hover. Yeah. It's like, yeah, at 100 feet, not at 10 feet. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah, helicopters are a weird magic. So
Bill Burr explained it to me once on a podcast, and I'm going to go with what Bill says because he seems like a smart guy.
Oh, what's the thing it's called? Not the accumulator. It has some weird name to it.
Collective.
Yeah, collective.
Yeah, collective rudder. Which I think just changes the pitch of the blades or something. Yeah, something like that. It's like, this sounds like a lot of things to go wrong. A lot of different pieces moving in circles and up and down, and it's like, uh-oh.
All the guards have M16s with no handguards on them. Although they do have gloves, so they must have just like, gloves are cheaper than handguards, I guess. I mean, they did that more for looks. They thought it like looked. I don't know if it made it look more futuristic or just weirder. I don't know.
I think they. What was the deal with that? Because they're basically, the front parts of them are wood and the back parts of them are plastic. So, because if you pay attention to some of the M16s in this movie, the barrels aren't drilled out. It's very briefly appears.
Oh, okay.
As you can tell, they're just blocks of wood.
Okay.
And for the front part, and then the back part's all plastic. Because I guess they used to break a lot when the guys were running around with them fast, because where they're joined together, it was just like a butt joint, and they were always breaking. So this thing just put epoxy in them. It's like, okay, get back out there. We got like 10 feet of film left. We're running out of money. That's what I heard. I don't know if it's true or not.
Yeah. We get Snake Plissken, played by Kurt Russell, is being taken through processing and cuffs. I think they mention here where it's like you can elect to like kill yourself, which I think is more played up in Escape from LA.
We'll actually show like people like being electrocuted.
Yeah.
But here it's like, no, talk to the duty officer and you can choose to be executed and cremated on site.
Yeah.
It's all in one package here. It's your choice.
Again, not explained, just put out there for you to think about.
Well, imagine going into like a city where like, oh, the prisoners create their own world. It's like, yeah, maybe just shoot me. How about that? I don't think I'm going to thrive in that universe.
Then we cut to a limo pulls up with Hauk, played by Lee Van Cleef, who's like most notable from like with The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Yeah. All kinds of westerns.
Yeah.
Almost as many spaghetti westerns as Clint
Eastwood. Yeah.
Kind of in the same universe, too. Same kind of voice, same guy. Was actually in a lot of physical pain when this movie was being made. He could hardly walk.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
Hurt himself, so he said, I can't do a lot of scenes where I'm walking, but I can sit and look menacing.
Yeah, because there's that scene where they drop him off the helicopters, and he looks like in a lot of pain or he's limping. So I was like,
yeah,
okay, so.
I think. Oh, what the hell was wrong with him? John Carpenter said, but he was actually, he was in a lot. They thought they weren't going to be able to have him in the movie because I think his knee was really messed up. Like, it's just like grinding joints together walking.
Yeah.
And it's like, but he's like, no, I'm doing it. I signed the contract. I'm doing it. Okay. Just please try to have me sit a lot because you're going to get the most out of me. They didn't have the groovy painkillers in 1980. Later. It's like the joint just glides smoothly no matter how. Once the painkillers wear off, you're going to turn against God. But until then,
yeah, I'll just grind this bone smooth. It'll be fine then.
Yeah.
Remy tells Hauk that there's a plane going down near the prison, but they don't know like what the plane is. They're just like, that's going 7 miles off. So they go to the air traffic control room. Some rebels have taken over Air Force 1, and they're going to crash it into the Manhattan prison. It's like the National Liberation Front of America.
Yeah, essentially Patty Hearst and the Symbionese Liberation Army stole Air Force One, and she's going to do it for the workers and the socialist brothers in America. And it's like, oh, it's the same lunatics running around now. They're still there then.
They shove President Pleasance, because I think he's just called the president here. It's Donald Pleasance.
His name's John Harker.
Okay.
He was supposed to model his performance after Richard Nixon, but Donald Pleasance is a British actor who doesn't do American accents. It's like, the American president's British. Cool.
Yeah, which makes actually works better for the whatever the fiction you want to what's going on here. So, I don't know.
Because you don't know how big the United States is.
Yeah.
It's like we could have just gone from alliances to it's better to be part of our country for what, because whatever's going on, the world's in a bad shape.
I mean, it's implied that we've invaded Russia.
Yeah, you kind of find that out. Yeah.
It's like, well, what's that about? Did we just go there and have a war, or did we take over? What's going on? Again, that's up for you to decide. They just give you the idea. They don't complete the idea for you.
There is a novelization written by Mike, Escape from New York novelization, written by Mike McQuay, came out the same time the movie did. You can buy it for $155. Collectible, because there's not a lot of them, or you can just go online and find a PDF and read it. There's a backstory here, not necessarily for the movie, but I'll kind of explain it. China and the Soviet Union are allied against the United States government, which is what it's called. And that's implied to also include Europe at this point, but we don't know for sure, which is okay, having a British guy be the American president, it's it might be just the strongest alliance. It's it's better than NATO. You're the United States now. So and also one of the linchpins of the war is the Middle East, of course, because of the oil, because remember this movie was written during the time of the oil crisis. So that's why he has a tape and they're talking about the Hartford Summit, and cold fusion is the secrets on the tape or whatever, which is just the MacGuffin of the movie that's just mentioned once and thrown away. So, but that's not in the movie. That's the backstory, which is Snake Plissken is his special forces guy. So that's what's going on there.
Who wrote the novel?
Mike McQuay. It's just called Escape from New York novelization.
I'm seeing if archive.org has it.
Oh, okay. I read it probably a decade ago as a PDF.
Okay.
It's fine. If you love the movie and you want to know the universe the movie exists in, that's it.
I've always, I don't know. There's been these weird pockets of because there's always this thing who reads the novelization of a movie, and in some instances it's it's actually better than the movie. The thing I always remember was that movie. Oh, what the hell is it called? Ultraviolet.
Yeah,
it was a terrible vampire movie by the guy who did Kurt Wimmer, and he did Equilibrium.
Yeah.
Or it's oh yeah, now he gets to do a movie with more money. This is going to be awesome. It was terrible. And I hear that the novelization is actually what you want. That's the movie they meant to make. And you never know if it's true. The book could still suck. I don't know. But there's more explanation of stuff. And that's another movie where it has a ton of ideas. Because it's you say it's a vampire movie, but really it's just The Matrix with vampires.
Yeah. And vampires that don't really seem like vampires either.
No.
It's okay. Because see, when my perception of vampires, and this actually works because John Carpenter made a movie about vampires, is the 30 Days of Night, just the monsters that. Yeah. If there's something that existed like that, it doesn't wear a suit and charm you. It's just a wild animal that you need to drag into the sun and burn alive because it'll kill you. It's it's not cruelty, it's survival. You are it, and but so that's what I've always thought about vampires. That's why when stuff comes along, Twilight or whatever, it's no, that's not a vampire. A vampire is Alien or something. It's a parasite thing that attacks you, and it's so evil the sun will destroy it because God hates evil and God is the sun. Or Lucifer is the sun, depending on which
Yeah, the
interpretation.
morning star. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. For some reason, they can't get into the cabin of Air Force One because she pressurized it.
Well, she put the anti-terrorist 9/11 block up. It didn't exist yet. Yeah. She changed the pressure like it's a submarine, thin-skinned aluminum hulled aircraft. Like, I'll pressurize the cabin. It's like, well, just blow the windows out. Or maybe you can do that. For all I know, it just.
It's one of these things like they just say stuff you're not really meant to analyze it,
Yeah.
But in this
because he's
movie,
not trying very hard. He's like beating on the door with the.
Yeah, but like in a way where he's trying not to harm the prop, but we also
Right,
might
yeah.
have another take. So like, don't break the prop now because we might have 5 more takes we gotta do. Because basically he's like hitting the door like he's like throwing punches in a wrestling match, where
Yeah, it is.
where it's like a lot of wind up and then like barely contact the person. But here in wrestling, the other person's getting hit can sell the hit. Here, the door doesn't sell the hit. So. Or also, it might not have been trying to break the door. The door was probably just like plywood. It's like, don't break that. It's like, okay, don't break the prop. It's like, okay, we'll just have this
Here's
look like
a rubber
garbage.
gun with a wooden front end on it and a plywood door. Now act like you're going crazy at this thing. Because if you like push it with your finger, you'll go through it.
Yeah.
Oh, this is my most challenging acting role ever.
Which again, like to your point about like you can see like making a movie like this is one of those moments where you feel like, oh, I know how they made this. So.
Yeah.
I'm guessing here. I don't know if that's true. It just stood out weirdly to me as like, oh, he's not really trying to get to that door.
Yeah, no, it was weird because in real life, it's like, yeah, oh, he can't shoot through the door. It's like, well, let's get the president in his egg and then try to shoot through the door and get the plane back. And then if it goes to hell, then shoot the presidential egg out and we'll be cool. But
yeah.
No, that doesn't. And there's a lot of things like that in this movie you could pick apart. But why? Because everything's just moving this plot
or you could go full Verhoeven effect and like that guy's in on the job too. Like he wants the plane to go down.
We want the president alive, and because we're collaborating with the Duke of New York to bring socialist revolution by capturing the leader of an evil government that doesn't really care if he's dead or alive. They just want the tape with the secret of cold fusion on it. And then they don't. And it's okay.
They don't even know it exists.
Yeah, so who knows?
So the lady crashes Air Force One into a building but it's like a computer animation of this happening.
Yes.
Which I think this is actually a computer animation here. Or no, maybe it's just an animation. But the other time
they wanted to use computer animation for the movie, but it was too expensive for their budget.
I know they did that for like the cityscape, but like this little plane animation sequence, is that just animated or is
that's hand drawn?
Okay, all right.
It's panel animation is what they called it.
Okay.
Because they did say we wanted to use computer because it's like, oh, Atari was a thing. It's like, no, it's too expensive to make it do individual things.
And we'll get to that because it's like actually what they did is actually genius and probably looks better than computer animation.
Yeah, it actually holds up a lot better than like the computer thing they could have done at that time.
A lady crashes a plane into a building in New York, but not.
Didn't hit the World Trade Towers. Like that would have been. This movie would have been connected to all. This would have been analyzed more than like Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. One of the planes into the World Trade Tower in 1980. Just like, oh my god. John Carpenter is like the captain of the Illuminati.
The police. What are they called? The police force, the United States.
United States Police Force.
United States Police Force. What is that? USPF.
USPF. Yep.
Okay.
And the government is called the United States government, and everything's got the weird eagle, the fascist-looking eagle. But the American fascist-looking eagle, not the German,
not the Nazi one.
No. We have our own fascist eagle here. It's not the same.
There's like a what is it? It's like a construction company. They do like snow plowing and stuff like that, and they have basically a lesser Nazi eagle as their as their symbol. You wouldn't know it.
Yeah.
Until somebody told me like they know the guy and they were in his basement and he has a Nazi flag. And then when they said that, it's like, oh, that's what that eagle is.
Let the eagle soar. Yeah.
I thought he was just a big Contra fan.
He loves the 1980s video game Contra.
Because
The
the power ups in Contra look like the Nazi eagle thing. So
he has like all the consoles in his basement. He can well, there's people that do that like Germanic lettering in English.
yeah,
And it looks very reminiscent of things like in fascist Germany in the 30s and 40s. And it's like, you know what you're doing. Like, we know what you're doing. No, it's my family heritage. It's like, that's not a heritage you can be proud of.
and then people
war on the United States.
And then people try to get around it with like Iron Cross stuff. It's like, no, this was pre-World War II, so it's not, it's not deal with that. And then now it's just merged together. It's like any German symbol just means a hate symbol because people ruined it trying to like get around it.
Well, I mean, they still use the Iron Cross to this day. That is their symbol, but it's like they were using it in World War II also. But then you get into this bizarre thing. It's like, well, where the here, or, the Wehrmacht and the SS were like different. It was always the National Army of Germany. They were just fighting for their country. It's like, but the Nazis, you get around that. That's what everyone thinks it is. That's just a symbol of like, what religion was that? Like Buddhist, like seasonal alignment. It's like, well, nobody thinks that in the West, so you can't put swastikas on. The Boy Scouts of America used to have coins that had swastikas on it, not because of the Nazis, but because it's like, oh, it was a Tibetan symbol or whatever. But they don't do that anymore because nobody's going to be like, oh, it's the Tibetan thing. See, it's the other direction. That's what it means. Like, no, nobody buys that. Stop being cute.
So yeah, the Air Force One gets crashed in a building. Everyone dies except for the president because they track his pod or like detaches from the plane as it crashes.
That must have been a hell of a ride for the guy in that pod, 'cause he's not restrained. He's carrying a loose suitcase. He just hit a building at 500 miles an hour. He must have got tossed around pretty good.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it just like escaped the wreckage or if it was like dropped out like a bomb at some point.
Yeah, it's not very clear.
So yeah, the police force sends out a squad of helicopters to go look at the crash site. The squad shows up. They roll through the street mostly without trouble, and then they find the president pod and it's empty. And they're like, a laugh is heard. And here's we got a weird guy, which this must be a nod to George Romero because his character's name is Romero.
This is the actor Frank Doubleday, who basically. This is Michael Biehn bases every performance he's ever given off this guy. I thought it was Michael Biehn at first years ago when I watched. It's like, is that Michael Biehn? Like, no, but he just sounds and kind of looks like him. It's like, okay.
He kind of looks
like the actor's name actually Frank Doubleday.
He kind of looks like Beetlejuice with like spiked teeth.
Yeah.
It's very weird and it's a very interesting role. He even plays it kind of like the character like some point seems kind of like, I guess gay is the word, but whatever, he seems to be like weird and anthemic in some points. So
well, yeah, he's a combination. Kurt Russell says his performance set the tone for like, this is what the people who live in Manhattan Island prison are. This is what they become.
Yeah,
it's like you're completely insane and evil, and so he kind of looks like a court jester / strangely darkly effeminate person who also has a very deep voice.
Yeah,
and it's also a very no nonsense, like, you're full of crap, he's always like, talking like that, and he points and he says weird stuff and he chuckles, so he's kind of like the Joker and Kyle Reese all in one character. Like, he's deadly serious and kind of effeminate in the same time. So yeah. But yeah, everyone says like his performance was like kind of generated by him. It's like, yes, this is what New York would do to people.
But Romero comes up with a finger. It's the president's because it's see the ring, the presidential ring on there, and he demands that He tells them to leave in 30 seconds or the president dies. If they touch him, he dies. If they come back, he dies. And so he just starts counting. He's like, Hulk's like, all right, I'm ready to negotiate. And he just keeps counting. He's like, all right, get out of here, guys.
Yeah.
we can't reason with these people because they blame us for everything.
And they're not wrong. But
nope. Then we got to Bob Hawk's like talking to some government people on the phone. It's probably the Secretary of Defense or something like that. I think that's who shows up later on. He's explaining the situation. Hawk has Priskin brought in to talk, which I think there's actually kind of like a rewind here because we see Snake Plissken being processed, and you hear like a voice so like, hang on a minute, and then we cut to like it's probably like 15 minutes earlier to the hang on a minute, and then we get the plane crash and all that stuff. And then this is here Pliskin being brought into the room to have a talk. We get Pliskin's kind of background here. This is SD Pliskin, American, Lieutenant, Special Forces Unit Blacklight, 2 Purple Hearts, Leningrad and Siberia, youngest man to be decorated by the president, robbed the Federal Reserve Depository, life sentence in New York Maximum State Penitentiary. And then here's where Snake grabs a cigarette and lights it. He wants his cuffs taken off, but Hulk's like, I'm too smart for that. But he's okay with him smoking. It's like, you're going to be dead anyway, so I don't care. I guess I don't care that much. Here how Hulk makes a deal for a pardon that if he can get the president in 24 hours, like they'll set him free. Then we cut to a great table of gadgets and weapons. I'm not sure if this started it, but this is like a thing repeated in tons of movies.
Oh yeah.
Remy explains like the gang situation in New York and how like different people control different stuff. Here also they explain that Snake has to land his glider on top of the World Trade Center to get in, and then he has to go down a service elevator. So a plane does it doesn't crash into the World Trade Center, but it does hit it. So yeah. I guess it's not a plane; it's a glider. So, they also explain that
the glider they bought. I think it was the most expensive single prop, and they were like they kind of sold the production companies like, we're going to sell this thing immediately and get our money back for it because we're just going to do a few exterior shots and then that's it, and it took them like years to sell it. Like, ow.
The president was on the way to a summit. Where's the summit? It's like in Connecticut or something, isn't it? Hartford. Okay.
Hartford, Connecticut.
And it was like, was a summit with China and Russia, or who else was that?
It doesn't really say in the movie, but it's implied like the Russian premier will be there.
Well, I know he says China too, but I thought he also said Russia, but it could just been. But yeah, it's about fusion power and maybe world peace. We don't know. Yeah. That's always a thing in movies. That like cold fusion will save us all.
Yeah.
What's the Apostle, or what is that movie?
The Saint.
The Saint. That's right. Yeah, that's another cold fusion save. And then what's the Keanu Reeves one? And Keanu Reeves and Morgan Freeman.
Yeah, it's not a great one. What is that one? I can't remember.
But it's always a thing.
Yeah. I mean, they're pouring billions into trying to develop it.
Yeah. I mean,
you've made it happen for a few seconds on Earth.
Yeah, I remember like a decade ago they said that in 10 years it'll be ready, but it hasn't happened yet. But they've had a lot of cool stuff they made to try and make it happen. So everybody's got one. Germans got one. Lockheed Martin has one.
Yeah, that's the thing. If like it's going to happen in America, it's going to be the military that has it first. But the reason that is not because we're a militaristic, warlike society. I mean, we are, but it's because they can absorb all those sideline costs, and it's hard for our enemies to tell when we're dumping money into like, no, that's for the new aircraft carrier that can destroy the entire world. It's like, actually isn't. It's just, it's like, oh, it has a secret like fusion reactor. But understand with fusion, you're only trying to harness the heat of the sun. So It's like, I don't know if we have metals that can do that yet, or materials, but I mean, I hope we do. I hope it all works, but it
won't. Then we cut to Snake's seeing a doctor. He gives him 2 injections in his neck, and then the doc makes Hawk tell him like what they injected him, that they inject him with an artery bomb, and the doc says that they can neutralize. It's got the doc's kind of cool here because it seems like he's on Snake's side because like, I'm doing this without your consent, but I'm gonna make him tell you like what we did to you because I have to be some kind of doctor.
Have to have some kind of ethics.
But yeah, they say that like if in 24 hours if they hit him with some X-rays, it'll neutralize the bombs before they blow up in his neck. So have that being the end of Act 1. So we got Act 2. Snake hops in the Goldfire glider, and then a Cessna takes off with him in tow. He's got 20 hours now. Then we cut to them flying over the city, but this is where it's the cool, looks like computer graphics. But what they did is they built a model, painted it black, and then just put white tape, illuminated tape, all over these buildings, and it looks like it's computer graphics, and it's amazing. Because what makes it look better is that because it's real, like the graphics have shadows.
Yeah, it has like depth and stuff. It's like, yeah, that for a night vision camera on that glider, it's like, that's amazing. Which is actually a problem with night vision, is you lose depth and all that, which makes it weird. It's like, wow, they figured that out. You realize it's like, no, it does have depth because it's actually just, it's white tape with like a black light on it. And also they lit Snake from behind with like a neon light bulb.
Yeah.
When he's in the plane, which makes it look double cool. It just,
Yeah, because he's got like a green face, and I think like there's like a red light in the background, so it's like kind of has like it has cool and interesting composition there. Although it's weird because it makes it look like the glider's like 100 feet off the ground, and then suddenly it lands on the World Trade Center. It's like it'd have to go up, and gliders usually don't go up. So.
Yeah, that's why they're called gliders, not climbers.
I hit a heat pocket. In video games, there's just wind blowing upwards everywhere, and it'll boost your your wingsuit so you can fly around the city.
Yeah.
So yeah, Snake lands the glider on top of the World Trade Center. I don't know which one. I think it's the one without the antenna.
Okay. Yeah, that would make sense.
But yeah, like it has like kind of a grappling hook that keeps it on there because like it almost falls off the edge of the building because they kind of build that tension. Then he hops out. He grabs the stuff. He hot wires the service elevator, which because all the lights out is like, oh, so there's no electricity in this prison, but I guess there's they're in the city, but I guess there's still some hanging around. So
yeah.
So he gets down to about the 50th floor in that elevator, then he has to walk the rest of the way down, which like that's gotta suck. Especially later on in the movie where he has like an arrow wound in his leg and he has to climb up 50 stories to get to the elevator. Yeah,
and those stairs in the World Trade Towers suck. As firemen on 9/11 will testify with like 80 pounds of gear, like nothing up the stairs. Like, oh my.
We got Snake walking the streets. He puts on a silencer and scope on his MAC-10.
Yeah,
a very kind of iconic movie weapon. That wouldn't make.
I got it called up here. It is a. It's a Mac. Yeah, it's just a MAC-10 with a. It's actually is a suppressor from that era.
Huh? Yeah, it's very big. So.
Yeah, it's a brand name. And of course everything's got a scope on it in this movie for unknown reasons. Even the 357 Magnum has a short or kind of a police barrel 357 Magnum length has a scope on it, which is like, well, that really wouldn't do much for you with that gun, but okay.
Yeah.
Looks
I don't know,
cool.
but I mean, scope revolvers are a thing. It's just they're kind of impractical, but they do look cool.
Yeah, I mean,
and
I have a scope revolver that's like this big. Not a short barreled, you know. Couldn't carry it as a personal defense weapon. I mean, you could, but you know, it was like you better clear leather with that pretty fast. It will scare the hell out of people, but you know.
Also, here I don't know how the mechanisms work, but having your scope on your silencer seems like a bad thing, unless it has some
like pure point.
Unless it has like some real rock solid lock in stuff where it's like, yeah, it's not gonna move when you shoot it. But I just here to look cool. So.
Yeah, it's everything in this movie because he also has like throwing stars and weird knives and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, he comes upon the crashed Air Force One, which this looks cool. Which I remember this being a whole production hassle because they basically had like 2 hours to put this plane in place, shoot the scene, and then move the plane out of the streets.
Yeah.
Because this is kind of like one of their biggest sets they have in the movie.
Yep, they had between 5 and 7 a.m. I think to do things.
And and just getting that plane was expensive. Because I think it is a real plane. They didn't just build it or something.
No, yeah, it was a decommissioned plane, and I forget what kind it was. It wasn't the plane shown in the model plane. Yeah,
the model. It's supposed to be a 747, I think, and it has a gigantic rear wing on it.
Yeah.
So it almost looks like a space. Something from like this. Yeah, it almost looks. I guess wind wouldn't account for anything with a wing, but I don't know. It looks more spacey than an airplane. But yeah, when he gets to you see people skittering around the background. There's a lot of people skittering around in this movie. It's like if something gets boring, just skitter somebody in the foreground or the background.
There's people moving in the background, which is kind of effective because this whole place would just be like a giant loony bin.
Yeah. But yeah, Snake, as he gets to the airplane, Snake gets a beep on his tracker. He follows the tracker to a movie theater. We go inside, and the prisoners are putting on a Broadway show. There's people cross-dressing in music. But see, people seem, nobody's dying in here. It seems to be a pretty well, like a respectable lot here.
Yeah, these aren't the psychos until you get in the back.
Yeah. We see Cabby for the first time, played by Ernest Borgnine, which is like, man, I don't. What's the read? Do you think he was just a cab driver and he didn't want to leave New York and he just stayed and when it became a prison, or did he do something terrible and ended up in the prison?
I think he did something terrible. I don't think anyone would be the right choice, because he is kind of a slimy guy. I mean, he'll. It's like, oh, the Duke's here. See you later. He's just like, I'm out of here. So.
Well, I can't remember if I heard it somewhere or if I picked up on something. For some reason I keep thinking like Cabby did some kid stuff that's not good, and so you're never, even though Cabby seems like the only friend in this movie, it's like, no, he's actually the worst person in the whole movie.
Oh, I didn't know about that background.
That might be something I imagined. I don't know.
Yeah. It would actually, it would fit with like the dark theme of the movie.
Well, for some reason I remember him being more childlike, and I think that's where I picked up on, I bet he molested kids. But actually, in watching this movie, he's not really childlike. He's just kind of like the only happy person in New York.
Yeah, he just kind of accepted things. It's like, well, but this is how we survive now.
Yeah, because the only reason he's here is because they're putting on a play. Got to go see the play, because otherwise he wouldn't be in this location because it's too dangerous. But they're putting on a play, and it's New York, so like, what else are you gonna do? But Cabby recognizes Snake, and so he follows him. So this is where we kind of get the idea that Snake's famous.
Right, really famous. It's always like, hey, I thought you were dead. Like that's reminder with him.
Which I don't know if it's like purely he's famous from being a war hero, because it's also implied he's pulled off other crimes other than this federal one. And I don't know if he's like famous for that, but I think everyone recognizes him for a war hero and not for his criminal stuff.
Oh, okay.
because like you only hear them talk about other jobs with other criminals, but other people seem to recognize him as a war hero. So I think that's like the first thing they know him for. Um, but yeah, he tells Snake that he doesn't want to be going around downstairs because like something's creepy downstairs. Snake goes downstairs. He finds some druggy rape gang or something. It's heavily left up for your imagination. They kind of get out of there. Yeah, seems to be some guys on drugs, and maybe the lady's passed out or something. They rip her shirt off, and then he just walks away. It's
yeah, he just kind of looks and like, yeah, not my problem.
yeah, because he's got a time limit. He can't be like putting virtues in every situation he walks into. He doesn't really care. And obviously that lady did something bad to end up here, or not. It could just be a political prisoner or something.
Yeah. We don't really develop the world of New York too much, other than it's like it's a hellhole. You can't trust a lot of people.
Yeah.
Which is like, we didn't go full like the Warriors, like, oh, what are the factions in here and what do they mean? It's hinted at, but it's never really addressed. But you got to remember, this is like 88 minutes pedal to the metal.
Yeah. Because I was sitting here wondering, because now that I have like more of a clue of like how New York is built out, it's like Manhattan Island is walled off, which basically means like Long Island is still like just a regular place, but now has no way to get to the rest of the mainland America that isn't through the prison. So like, how does that work out? Is there a big boating culture in Long Island now? Does everybody just abandon Long Island?
Well, that's the Long Island's like the farms where they grow the food that they bring into New York.
Oh, okay.
Because they do drop off supplies there. That is mentioned. So as I understand, it was all turned over back into farmland.
Okay.
Because we have no idea like what kind of wars have been going on in the rest of America, like how many people are left. You don't really know.
Some of the prisoners are kind of bums. They try to knock out Snake, but then he just takes them out instead. Snake sees a guy just punching a body, which is weird because it looks like, oh, this guy's passed out, but then he just seems to be fine being punched the whole time. He's like, hey, I'm the president.
Yeah. He's got the tracker on.
Yeah.
That man gave this to me and said I was the president. He's just like a stew bum. He's totally drunk. Yeah.
He's huffing some, what's that? Sterno, yeah. Snake breaks the tracker. The signs go off at base, and so that scares them for a moment. It's like, oh, the president's dead. And it's like, no, he's not here. I guess we should also, I mean, if you haven't seen this, Snake only has one eye. He's got an eye patch on, so definitely another like great look to him going on here. He's got long hair, an eye patch. He's got like camo pants.
Yeah, I guess that eye patch was like a Kurt Russell idea.
Yeah.
But it was very hard to act in that. And some of the scenes, it's actually a see-through eye patch at the more distant scenes because he was continuously stumbling over. So, because you have no depth perception with one eye. So everything, like you can see things, but it's hard for you to like tell how far away it is. So yeah, he had a see-through eye patch. And let's comment real quick. Like before this, Kurt Russell was in his Miley Cyrus phase of acting, where he was basically a Disney and kind of
he was like
TV actor.
He was a computer who wore tennis shoes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like a kid actor, and like came up and making the Disney program.
Yep.
Was it the Mickey Mouse Kids? Was he one of those or whatever?
He did a lot of stuff for Disney. I don't know what all. I know the computer who wore sneakers was the big one, and then before he worked with Carpenter before this in a
Elvis
biopic about
Elvis.
Yeah, Elvis. But he
which I've never seen. I heard it's good. I've never seen it though.
Yeah, it's not bad for a movie on TV. It's actually pretty good. It's well acted, well directed. I mean, yeah, Kurt Russell's an amazing actor, and he really made this movie too in a lot of ways. Because
it seemed like he had freedom and he got to put a lot of ideas through. And
yeah, well, him and John Carpenter did the commentary for this, and they seem like friends. Like it's like these guys really like each other, so they're having a good time. And
also that's the thing, because also being that Kurt Russell like was a kid actor, he's just a super professional where like he just knows how to show up, knows his lines, and it's like you love people like that. And if they can add a little panache to it, it's like just way better. It's even better.
Yeah, they're not just showing up for a paycheck. They're professional actors that like, oh yeah, I'd like to do this with the character. No, okay, cool. Or yes, like great. You know, they're not like just a personality that's so just a void of narcissism that you can't deal with.
Yeah, well, that's always hear stories about. Yeah, you'll hear like wildly different stories about Al Pacino being hard to work with because like he's a guy who basically has one take in him because he brings so much energy and weirdness to the role. And then like, oh yeah, let's do that again. And he's like, no, all my energy's gone. And so then you have to have weird things where it's like the actor is being needy, where it's like you have to confine. It's like, but then the end product, it's like, oh yeah, this guy's brilliant. I guess he was right. But
this works, but
it takes so much to make this happen that I don't know if it's worth it.
Other potential leads for this movie were Tommy Lee Jones as Snake Plissken.
Okay.
Which actually would have probably been darker. Even
yeah.
Darker. I don't think any of the humor of this movie would have come through a Tommy Lee Jones Snake Plissken. And then also Charles Bronson, who was considered too old at the time to do this. But it's like, yeah, this was probably the best Snake Plissken.
I think Tommy Lee Jones ended up in a John Carpenter written movie called Black Moon Rising.
Yeah. It's kind of a weird car theft movie that's sort of cool.
But yeah. Once Pliskin sees that, like, okay, the president's not on the tracker, he's like, oh yeah, well the president's dead, so yeah, take me back. But Houck's like, no, you got to keep going. So like, so Snake's very frustrated. He just wants this to be over as quick as possible. So then Snake goes and finds the presidential pod. It's like a new starting point. He sits down and kind of ponders things for a moment because he's like trying to like should I just blow my brains out now or what the hell should I do? And then some guy goes around like banging on sewer grates, which is like left like what's going on here? Which I guess ultimately like the people in the sewers are like cannibals and they've ran out of food and so they just go up and grab people and eat them or something. I'm guessing that's what's going on.
Yeah, no, they're called the Crazies.
Yeah. So I don't know if this guy that running around beating on the sewer grates is a part of the Crazies or if he's just trying to like incite them to kill people.
Yeah, you never quite know.
Yeah, it's up to you. Yeah, it's good. It's up to you to decide what's going on. But yeah, people start emerging from like the sewer grates and like buildings. They seem to kind of ignore Snake here, maybe because he has a gun, but you don't know what's going on. So Snake hides out in a restaurant to see what's going on. Then a lady surprises him and asks him if he's a cop, which is one of the weird credits. And the credits it says like special. I think it's like special appearance by Season Hubley, and I'm like, who the hell is that? And she's listed as girl and chock full of nuts. She doesn't even have a name, but this is Kurt Russell's wife. So
yeah. Yeah, that's what John Carpenter and Kurt Russell were sitting when they were watching the movie. It's like, oh, it's our ex-wives movie, because he was married to our Adrienne Barbeau.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Carpenter was.
That makes sense.
Yeah, they were married for like 5 or 6 years.
Yeah. Hollywood isn't kind to marriages.
No.
Yeah, he tells her he's looking for the president, and she tries to like seduce him, and then she just gets grabbed by some underground dwellers and presumably eaten. So,
yeah, we don't know what happens.
Snake.
He's not like there's like glimpses of humanity because he seems like sort of upset by it, like he does shoot down the hole where she disappeared. I don't know if it's to kill her or to as a mercy or what. Yeah.
Snake gets chased out of the building. He kind of climbs the highest floor. He shoots a doorway and through the wall, and then just jumps through. Which this building is not built well because there's no 16 by 16 2x4s. There's nothing there.
Yeah. No, they were even laughing in the commentary. It's like that's the thinnest styrofoam wall you'll ever see. I've got to shoot holes through it and jump through it. And The reason it looked so bad, I guess, was the charges they had to put on it.
Yeah.
Because they had a better built wall, but the charges they had to put on it were so large. It was like, oh, you're gonna lose your other eye when these go off. They had to build a really thin wall, so when the squibs went off, they could just jump. So it looked like, and they even laughed. It's like, yeah, that looked bad, but that's what we had to do.
I mean, the idea of it's cool. It just kind of looks kind of silly because it's clearly he could have just jumped through the wall anyways. He didn't have to shoot him.
Well, yeah, like I said, they had a better built one, but it just fired shrapnel around the set. So, like, oh, can't do that.
And I don't know if this is the first instance of that, but it was a neat thing. I know we did. What was it? Nemesis. They did that.
Yeah,
in that
Nemesis
movie.
did it. Yeah, but that was shooting through the floor.
Yes. Which then Underground or Underworld stole that from Nemesis.
Yeah. It's very iconic to see it, but in real life, you just shoot your feet off. Unless you have the willpower and the presence of a demon where nothing's upsetting you. It's like, this is my best escape option. Okay.
So and climbs out a window on the other side, and then he breaks his walkie as he's like hopping over stuff. Snake keeps running away, and he crosses paths with Cabby, and so he hops in Cabby's cab. Cabby just kind of casually throws a Molotov at the crazies, and then he drives out of the neighborhood.
Yeah, he's very like, "Oh, you don't want to be out here, Snake." He's always the most obvious guy.
Yeah,
it's like, yeah, no shit, I don't want to be out here.
It's like It's like the other narrator we get in the movie is Cabby.
Yeah.
He says that he's been driving the cab for 30 years. Snake puts a gun to his head, but Cabby's like, "Hey, don't insult me. I'm going to tell you anything you ask me. You didn't have to put a gun to my head. I think you're cool, Snake. We can be friends." He says the Duke's got him, the Duke of New York, so we get a preamble to what that character is because we have no idea what that is. Cabby takes Snake to meet Brain, and we get Adrienne Barbeau. Maggie, she answers the door. She seems kind of interested in Snake and then lets them in. Snake recognizes Brain, who's played by Harry Dean Stanton, who we last saw in Alien, 2 movies ago. Yep. Here, Snake calls him Harold, and apparently they were on a job together where it went bad with Brain. We don't know what happened. It seemed like Brain just abandoned the job, and then what would they say? Fresno Bob. He talks about bad things happen to Fresno Bob, which that's just I get great throwaway lines for you to figure out what that who's Fresno Bob? I bet he's from Texas or something.
Yeah.
Or he's from Arizona.
No, he'd be from California, right? No. California is Alabama Jim. Okay, that makes sense.
See, we're trying to throw people off, so we have names that don't actually actually explain our background. Yeah. I think the best joke of that was in Forrest Gump.
Oh yeah.
They had a bunch of things where it's like he was talking about people and they all have nicknames that aren't from where they are from.
Yeah, the guys in the Vietnam, they all had this is Tex, he's from Chicago.
And then there's there's one, or I think it was Dallas, and it's like, Dallas, I don't know where he was from. And then he's like the one guy who's actually from Texas or something. There's also just they're in a library and there's an oil derrick in there.
Yeah. It's kind of weird. Didn't know that they had that.
Yeah, I don't know. They got cars with gas, so they got to be getting gas from somewhere. Huh? I didn't mention it here, but they mentioned in the opening where they're showing off all the bridges are cut off and stuff like that. But also they've mined all the bridges and waterways and stuff like that. So apparently, Brain knows where all the mines is on the bridges, or at least one of the bridges they can escape through. So that's why he's useful. Although when we get to the bridge later on, it seems like all the mines could be easily avoidable. I mean, you never even see a mine, so I'm guessing it's underneath the bridge and some kind of sensor makes it blow up or whatever. I don't know. It's up to you to decide what's going on there.
Yeah.
So they're walking out to the cab, and this is where Cabby says he hears the Duke coming, which we get kind of like some music that's introducing. Then they like look back, and Cabby's already run off with the car. So Snake, Brain, and Maggie like hide, and we get the Duke played by Isaac Hayes. He has a car with like chandeliers and hydraulics. Like this is a neat looking, just weird thing.
Yeah, it's
Very Mad Max, or I guess Road Warrior esque stuff going on here.
Yeah, that it would be a 1977 Fleetwood Brougham Cadillac.
Oh, it is a Cadillac. Okay.
Yeah.
It's good. I called it a Cadillac, but I thought it looked too much like some kind of like Impala or something. It's like that must not be a Cadillac. All right.
No, it's Cadillac. There is an Impala in here later, but it's
okay.
Junk car.
Apparently the Duke is looking for Brain to get his mind map. Snake sneaks up on some of the goons, and like he takes a station wagon, steals it from one of the guys, and he picks up Brain and Maggie. They take Broadway, which are like Maggie's like, you don't want to go there. So, and then they just run through like just a long line of people that like pelt the car with rocks, arrows, just hit it with sticks. So it's a whole like gauntlet here they have to go through. They turn around on a wall of cars, but then decide they can't go back the other way. So then Snake just rams the wall of cars with the back of the car. So make sure you don't destroy the engine, but crumple the back rear end of the station wagon. So
demolition derby rules.
Yep. And then they end up like back on the trail of Duke's convoy. So I guess this was a good thing to do this. So. But then they get out on foot, and then Brain's like talking to some of Duke's guys, while Snake like sneaks into they're like on it's like just a train car that's parked there. And we cut inside, and we see like some guards with the president, which they're just kind of like taunting him. Snake takes out one of the guards, but then the other guard like sees something in the president's eyes and turns around and shoots Snake in the leg with an arrow. But then Snake kills him with a throwing star. Which I feel like wouldn't kill him. It would just be like a weird thing in his head for a while.
Yeah.
Well, this is embarrassing.
Get this out. Oh, we don't have any medical services here.
Oh man, was throwing star when you were a kid? Was throwing stars like the best thing in the world, and everybody wanted a throwing star?
I knew kids that had them. I never got them because I could never make them work. I didn't understand like how you threw them. So I was always like into big knives. It's like, well, yeah, the throwing star is going to hurt. It could take out one of my eyes, but if I bury this up to the hilt, that's definitely going to do some damage. So in the world of kid weapons, I always favored like, knives and things like or clubs.
Because with like when I grew up, we like had like because the Ninja Turtles were like created in the 80s. But so I didn't really see them like when they were premiering. I saw them when they were just like broadcasting them in reruns, like 5 at a time or whatever. And so that, and also the toys. So of course, like all the kids in my class, we wanted nunchucks and throwing stars.
Yeah. Now the things I saw that like weapons like that were impressive was there was a kid I knew that had like the knives you threw, like the throwing daggers.
Yeah.
Like the throwing knives that were like balanced, and he showed me how to like do them, and you could bury those in 2x4s. It's like they were big and heavy, and you kind of had to wind up to throw them, and if you were a little off, they would just like bounce off of stuff. But yeah, once you kind of got the trick down, it did work. But it would take such an amount of time to prepare to use one. It's like I don't know. That's like. Because, like, what's the guy going to do? Like, stand there and just take damage like that? No, he's going to go hide behind something or knock you down. That's like Desperado made that cool. It was like, oh, yeah, this could work, right? And then someone did it in real life. It's like, no, actually, you don't have enough penetrating power to do that. It's a cool idea. You realize, like, why guns, like, became the dominant weapon. It's like, well, yeah, they're simple and they work. It's like all this other stuff, like, looks cool, but it either takes a lot of time to develop or it's just not that effective. The best way to use a knife or any sharp weapon is to force it into somebody's body violently while you're holding on to it. Not tossing it through the air is fun, but it's, like, not really the best way to use it.
Snake escapes with the president, and some thugs like jump them and overwhelm Snake. Here's the Duke. Duke kind of comes out of a train car in the background because also Brain and Maggie are there, and he kind of points at fingers at Brain because he's like, "Hey, you know who Snake is and what he's doing." It's like, I'm gonna blame you for something.
Yeah.
But then he walks off, and the Duke tries to interrogate Snake, but Snake doesn't talk because he's like grabbing the arrow in his leg, I think, or just the wound. Did he take the arrow out yet, or did he just leave it in? I can't remember.
I think the arrow's still stuck in it.
Okay. Which also just shows like what a badass Snake is he takes an arrow to a leg and doesn't make a sound.
Yeah.
He's like, all right, Mr. President, we got to get out of here. Yeah, do you think like his voice in this movie is kind of doing a Clint Eastwood impression or something?
I think maybe it's just the tone of the movie.
Yeah.
And the kind of like main character that Snake Plissken is like, it just, yeah, it fits him. He's like one of those guys. Because if he had like a real high voice or just or Kurt Russell's regular speaking voice, you would almost be able to relate to him maybe too much. Whereas that kind of voice always like establishes like his distance from other people. It's like he hates to talk and he eats every word he says.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't like people. So that kind of works.
Well, that's like the accidental thing with like spaghetti westerns, especially like the one that Clint was in, because that was all overdubbed later on. You just gave them less lines, and they became more impactful, and the characters more mysterious because they don't like to talk or explain themselves. Which that's very much what Snake's doing here, which would make sense because it's like, okay, yeah, this is John Carpenter making his version of a western.
Yeah.
Which I don't know what western. What western do you think is the closest to Escape from New York?
I really.
There's probably one, but I can't think of anything.
Yeah, I'm not like an expert on westerns. I've seen the big ones, but.
Let's see here. Oh yeah, Duke knocks out. Oh yeah, so yeah, Snake doesn't talk as he's like grinding the arrow. But Brain basically tells who he is and what he's here for. So Snake never talks. Then Duke just knocks out Snake. Then we cut to the cops are doing air surveillance, so they're not coming down or touching anything. They don't see anything on infrared, which is to like a big of their surprise. Like something weird's going on. We know all these prisoners are here, but none of their heat's showing up on the sensors.
Yeah.
There's also, I think this is where the Secretary of State wants to send in like a strike team, but Hawk holds them off to try to see if Snake can figure something out. Then we cut to Plissken wakes up and some guys are guarding him with spears. Then we also cut over to Duke is having fun shooting around the president, tracing around the president with gunfire. As he's like shooting the gun off his like boot and stuff like that. So. The Duke wants Brain's diagram. The Duke shoots open the briefcase that the president has, and Romero grabs the tape that falls out. The thing's handcuffed to the president, which became I'm not sure if that's made famous here. That's probably got to show up somewhere else, or just happened in reality. But the suitcase that's handcuffed to you is like a very big thing in like movies.
Yeah, it establishes something and it looks cool, but in real life it's like that's just drawing a lot of attention. It's like, get that hand off that guy now. Whatever's in there, we want it.
Well, yeah, I always stuff about like the football, the suitcase, the nuclear codes, and like some FBI guy has it or whatever, or Secret Service agent has it.
Air Force.
Oh, okay.
It's an Air Force captain. I think there's two guys that rotate 12-hour shifts, always being within 10 feet of the president.
Okay. But is it a suitcase handcuffed to them, or what is it, or do we know?
I don't know if it's handcuffed because it's not really useful to do anything unless you have codes.
Yeah.
And probably at this point, like extensive biometric stuff, because that's actually reliable at this point. So I don't know if it's handcuffed. It could have been at one time. Maybe it still is. It's just important that the president can get access to it so he can launch all our nuclear missiles, because that will solve the problem. We win. Congratulations.
Then we cut to it's like a day matte painting, which I believe this is the one done by James Cameron, because I remember in the commentary he talks about it because cause a lot of matte paintings are just drawn on like a black square and then that's fitted over the matte on the camera or in some line of it that I can pan over. And so here James Cameron did it on a piece of glass so that the daylight could come through.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, then we get helicopters land in Central Park. There's like a crowd waving them in, and they've left the briefcase for the cops. Then we also cut to like Brain figures out that the glider is on the World Trade Center, so he's like, we're gonna get out that way. Which I still have no idea how that glider is gonna get out of there.
Yeah, well, it's gonna squirrel suit off the top, gain velocity as it falls.
Yeah, because we see how well it works at the end of the movie. It's like, so I think either way, it's gonna just hit the
Drop.
ground. But yeah, this is kind of weird because I don't know. I guess I get confused about the time. I guess it's just all for like, you see daybreak for a moment and then it's night again, which I guess that just shows how long Snake's been out.
Yeah.
Which I guess it could knock off like 16 hours off his clock or something like that.
Yeah, you're never quite sure about this. This doesn't do like the countdown like 24.
But here's where the cops get they left demands in the suitcase, and it's for the president. In exchange for the president, they want like to free the entire prison that is the Manhattan Island. And they also find one of Pliskin's gadgets in it, which just looks like some goggles with some nails punched into the eyes. Like, I don't know what the hell these are supposed to be.
Yeah, I didn't never get that.
I think they're supposed to be night vision goggles or something. So they decide, they're gonna send in a team because it's like, well, Pliskin's dead. Then we see that Pliskin has about an hour left before his neck explodes. Which again, that's another thing that a lot of prison movies have like exploding neck stuff in them.
Yeah, it's kind of dark. Yeah, it gets your attention.
So I have that being in Act 2. So Act 3. Pliskin's brought into a boxing ring, which is actually just a wrestling ring, to a booing crowd. And some big wrestler makes his way to the ring to a cheering crowd. Duke quiets the crowd, and here he says he's going to like promise their freedom, and then they're going to do it with Snake's head on the car because they said like this is the best they could send. Which is like, no, he's a criminal who's also just a war hero. It's not the person they want to sit in. It's just the guy that could blend in. Although he has a gun and gadget, so it's basically everybody knows that the cops sent him in. But I mean, I guess other people have guns in here, so yeah. He couldn't scrape all the guns out of New York. He just walled it off and turned it into a prison.
Yeah, I mean, there's enough not around that it's like, because there's a lot more like arrows and sharp metal. It's like, yeah, guns aren't really the problem. It's the ammunition to feed them that becomes that's where you always run into those.
So they then Snake and this I can't remember his name, the wrestler guy, they start fighting with clubs. Snake's being overpowered, but he's still staying in there. We cut to Brain talks his way to the president, claiming the president has cyanide capsules, so we got to make sure he doesn't kill himself. And then when he gets close to the president, he's like untying him, and then Romero is just kind of like he's in disbelief of like what's going on here. It's like, what are you doing? And then he just stabs Romero to death, who dies weirdly.
Like his eyes open wide and his mouth open, but he's like holding a pose.
Yeah,
like he just took a knife to the guts and he's still doing Christopher Walken. The hell is this guy? Is he dying or acting? What's going on? Is he gonna put on a little show for us?
We cut back to the fight. They got a trash can shield and spike bats this time. Snake gets the momentum and then just buries the spike back and Slag's head. That's his name.
Yeah, so actually a pro wrestler named Ox Baker.
Okay.
And I know that there was Kurt Russell was talking about having him on set, and I guess he was a professional wrestler, not an actor, and he was kind of really putting on a show.
Yeah.
But they were swinging those bats around, and Kurt Russell was like, "Whoa, okay, hold on, we don't need to go that hard. It's like someone's going to get killed." And like he got knocked over once when they were filming him, or like no, this happened. Like Kurt Russell like just moved and like fell on the ground, and then he tapped that guy's nuts with the bat, and he's like, "Are you ready to calm down now?" Because he's like, I will hit you with this fucking thing right in the balls." Because he was like, "Oh, okay, okay." He was actually a really nice guy, they said, but he was really going at it like, pro wrestler style, and it was like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, I mean that's the thing about wrestlers. Like they have to in some way hurt each other in reality to sell that they're trying to kill each other in the storyline. And also, usually wrestling doesn't involve. I mean, I guess it does involve weapons sometimes, but not so much in that back in that day.
Yeah.
But yeah, when he kills the guy, the crowd cheers, so now they're behind Snake. And also, like, the Duke's kind of worried about this, but then he gets word of the president being gone, so he just runs off. Which the whole crowd runs off as well. It's like, oh, what's the Duke doing? We gotta go follow him.
Well, the Duke's regime is essentially collapsed at this point.
Yeah. So
like
the Duke,
the gladiatorial show he put on, this is like the emperor in Gladiator. He's lost the crowd.
So yeah, Duke and the Duke boys go chase down the president. Snake gets away in the commotion because nobody's after him. He's like, here's good because he basically has a limp for the rest of the movie. So it's like he's selling that. It's like you can't take an arrow to the leg and just walk it off.
Yeah, like Mad Max, he's always got the limp. Doesn't heal up that quickly.
We get outside. It's night again. Brainy and Maggie fight like with some of the prisoners who they're on top of the World Trade Center. Snake has an hour left. Brain and Maggie are fighting on top of the World Trade Center. The prisoners like drop the glider, so it just falls off. So that's not a thing anymore. Although I like how it's like, yeah, we're gonna get out on a glider, and I think even Cabby's like, oh, geez, you're gonna take me too. And it's like, I don't know, that thing only fits one person. I don't know. Yeah. Oh, everybody's getting out on the glider.
Yeah, everyone's like excited about this. It's like this isn't a like 747.
So Snake comes and takes the president, but now they need the tape as well because that's part of the package deal. You can't just save the president; you got to get the tape too. Which is always kind of weird because it feels like, can't there just be another tape? Why do they make it exclusive? Like, what's going on here? But that's the drama.
Yeah.
Duke and his boys ambush Snake. Like this is where they get off the elevator and they ambush him. They open up a car and there's just a guy with a crossbow in there. I was confused by that because I'm like, wait, did they drive this car over here and then there's suddenly a guy in the engine thing or in the engine compartment, or was that just always there, not going to work? But then Snake like shoots a steam canister, and so they're able to get away from like 60 guys.
Yeah.
The Duke, the president, Maggie, and Brain come across Cabby, so they hop in. Snake takes the driver's seat from Cabby. Cabby, for some reason, because they also when you first get into Cabby's cab, they feature his tape player, and so Cabby happens to have the tape about fusion. So Snake pops that in to listen to it to confirm that it's like, okay, this is the fusion tape. He also just grabs another tape randomly before he knows Cabby has that tape, so that's good to take notice. Because at first he's like, "I just need a tape to pawn this off." It's like I just need to make this con work for a little bit. So you kind of have a hint of that what will happen, foreshadowing as they call it.
Yeah.
Snake jumps the cab onto a bridge. So they're trying to get out to the wall. They hit one of the mines, but they just keep going. So this is the weird mine bridge where you never see the mine, you just see explosions. And also, it's not all the mines seem to be effective. It seems to be if you go fast enough, you can just avoid the explosion of the mine. Duke's also giving chase in his car. Then one of the mines blows the cab in half. Snake and everyone but Cabby walk away from this explosion, which is, I guess, kind of sad. So this is where you have to imply that, like, Cabby must have done something horrible, and it's good that he's dead now. This is also, like, where I realized that, like, I remember, like, Escape from New York has a lot of fun things in it, but, like, this ending here is, like, so bleak, where you just, like, everybody unceremoniously dies, and for no reason. It's like, oh, right, this is the nihilism and bleakness that fascism brings to the world.
This is where people die alone, unremembered.
So yeah, now they're on the run. I also get Brain. He's like trying to yell like commands to Snake. We're like, no, that's where the mines are, and Snake just avoids it because he doesn't have time to worry about that stuff.
I mean, these discolored patches on the ground. Okay.
But as Brain's trying to yell at Snake for he's running the wrong way, Brain steps on a mine and gets blown up. Maggie's distraught by Brain's death because she's like kind of shakes him a bit or whatever. Is like, no, he doesn't wake up, he's dead. Snake tries to get her to keep going, but then she just gets her gun back to have a showdown with the Duke. So the Duke's barreling down with his car, and she shoots at the Duke.
Also driving like 90 miles an hour, as opposed to the 40 miles an hour they were doing with the taxi.
Yeah. She doesn't hit the Duke at all, but I guess it forces him to crash his car into her to stop his car. So that's the best she does. It's a very unceremonious death where like she doesn't get anything out of it either. She doesn't heroically defend her fallen boyfriend that she was a prize that the Duke gave to Brain also. That's weird.
Very medieval.
I probably remember Adrienne Barbeau the most from the Swamp Thing movie.
Yeah, that's what I always associate her with that movie.
That was weirdly on a lot in my childhood. Even though it's kind of a weird B movie, there's something about that movie that's good.
Oh yeah.
She's still doing stuff. She has a lot of like voice work under her belt. But yeah, she's still working. So.
Good.
Yeah, they cut to her dead body and she just has blood all over the place, and then she just dies unceremoniously. There's cops at the top of the wall. We don't really get an idea how like big the wall is, but it's just like you never see the top of it, so it could be 100 feet wall. I think it's actually 50 feet tall or something. I can't remember. But yeah, we see the cops start to get a rappel rope down. Let's see. Where was that? Oh, yeah. They're getting the rappel rope down. They grab the president and pull him up, and then Duke fires at Snake, who like he's trying to get to the rope, so he hides away after he fires at him. Then the Duke sees the rope and tries to go for it, and that's where Snake like tackles him from behind. Then Snake like kind of like knocks him out a bit, and he's able to get to the rope. He starts ascending up the rope, and then the president stops the ascent. And then he shoots up the Duke, and he starts like repeating lines at. It's like, yeah, you're A number one or whatever. Now as he shoots him to death, and he gets his revenge.
Like violently shoots him to death, and they show it. It's like empties a magazine into the guy.
Then the president lets.
Because Donald Pleasant's like actual POW from World War II.
Okay.
Down over Germany. He was in the RAF. And initially didn't want to fight in World War II, but once they started bombing London, he was like, okay. And he was a radio operator on a plane and was actually a POW for a while. That's what John Carpenter said. He's like, he's actually Donald Pleasant's actually a tough guy. He's like he kind of seems like this kind of English, this British guy that's a little frantic and manic, but he's actually he's had a rough life. He was always an actor, but he was in like a POW camp for like 2 years. He knew how to use guns and stuff.
Yeah, my favorite kind of stories like that is Peter Jackson trying to tell Christopher Lee like what killing people with a knife sounds like. And Christopher Lee had to be like, no, I know what it sounds like when you kill somebody with a knife, because he actually did it in World War II.
Did that in World War II. I could probably tell you about it, actually. The air escaping their lungs when you pierce their chest is really weird. It's a whistling sound, you know. And I can imagine Christopher Lee saying stuff like that.
Oh yeah, and he was like very pleasant about it too. And like, of course, Peter Jackson was horrified. He's like, "Oh Jesus Christ! I guess I am just a guy making shit up, aren't I?" Yeah. Yeah, the president lets Snake up, and so yeah, Snake gets on the other side of the wall and runs to the doctor with the X-ray machine. He still has the limp, so it's always kind of a hurried thing. Hulk stops him for a moment, and because he wants the tape, so he gives him the tape. Then Snake gets his neck zapped, and so it's over. So now he's free; he can do whatever he wants. You don't have any forms or anything like that. They're just like, all right, you can go.
Yeah, it's a fascist states. Everything's a word of mouth.
The president is going to broadcast from Liberty Island base to the conference in Connecticut. Snake asks the president like what he thinks about the people that died to get him out, and he tries to be conciliatory, or it's like, oh, it was all for the greater good, but then Snake's like, oh, you don't care, he's just like,
yeah, this is John Carpenter's Nixon, so
yeah,
he's like not a good guy.
Yeah, he doesn't really care that they died. He just says he's sorry that they died, but he's not. He's just like, well, I'm alive, so that's cool.
They died for a greater cause, all this crazy stuff that like you fought and for and got all messed up about this meaningless war of just exploiters and politicians. Like, okay, well, here's the fake tape.
Yeah. And you don't even know, like, did Snake screw everything up here? Like, had the president presented this tape, would there have been world peace? Like, who knows?
Yeah, well, yeah, you don't know, but like Snake's like he's not an evil person at all. He's kind of a survivor.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think if the president had been like contrite about, I thank you for what you did, and I'm sorry all those people died, he might have given him the real tape.
Yeah.
It was sort of a test.
Yeah.
It was like, but yeah, this is all fake, like I thought it was. Like, cynicism, locked. It's like, okay, we're locked in now. It's confirmed.
Well, also, here's the thing. I remember there's always like kind of an idea. I think it's played with in Escape from L.A. But do you think those things in his neck were actually ever there? Or was it just a ploy?
We don't know. I think they were, because this was a little more brutal, less goofy than Escape from LA. It's like this seemed like a little darker world, so it's like yeah, they would do that if they could. Because actually, yeah, I know it was, because if not, when he like the president's back, Hulk could have been like, okay, shoot him. It's like, no, they like did hold up to a certain degree to their word. So yeah, that was probably true. They were actually a thing.
Okay.
Because you couldn't control Snake Plissken otherwise. He would take the Gulf Fire and go to Canada. What he would have done. It's what anyone would do, unless there was something to prevent that.
But you never see it go off, so you just never have any idea whether it was an actual threat or not, or just that's just fascism where you can like make people think something's going to happen when it won't.
Yeah.
Like the idea of the threat's more threatening than actually following through with the threat.
Yeah. It's just kind of a MacGuffin.
Yeah.
You don't know, but you can assume. Because at the time this movie was made, they would have had like this would all been high technology.
Yeah.
Like we look at it and we're like, okay, but it's like, yeah.
But after the president gives his after he doesn't convince Snake that he's worth the shit, Snake tosses his smoke and leaves perturbed. He comes across Hout. Is it Hauk or Hout? I can't remember.
Hout.
Okay. Maybe I just thought.
Hout.
Wait, K or T?
K.
Okay. And I think I accidentally wrote Hout. I've been saying Hauk because I'm like, that's cooler than Hout. So.
Yeah, it is actually cool.
It's like Hawk,
but with only
weird.
one.
Yeah.
Only one U instead of a double U.
Yeah. So yeah, like Hauk's like, so you're gonna kill me now? And Snake says he's too tired to kill Hauk. Hawk wants to make Snake an offer, like a job, which I don't know if like, yeah, be in the police force, or if he has like some criminal activity he wants to engage in with Snake or something.
No, in the book, all the military, they don't explain it here. The United States police force is all ex-military.
Oh, okay.
And most of the people that were in the military in this world were actually like the most severe kind of PTSD Vietnam guys you could imagine. So they just made them into cops of this awful country that we've created now because of our war we've been fighting with the Russia since like 1980. So yeah,
and with all the civil unrest, it's like, yeah, let's get the guys who kill people for a living and have PTSD to handle the people we don't want alive anymore. So,
and also people have been very scarred and mutilated from chemical weapons, which the Russians, I guess, used extensively. That's why Snake doesn't have an eye.
Oh, okay.
Chemical weapons attack. They don't go into that in the movie.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, it's if you read the book, it's like, oh, this world sucks. Like, this is awful. Everything makes sense that's going on
here. Snake says that his name's Pliskin here, so just kind of to turn things around. So it's like, how can never be right?
Yeah.
And he just walks away. We cut to the president starts to present his fusion tape, and it's just one of Cabby's music tapes, like da 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 da.
Handstand Boogie from Dick Clark.
Then we see Snake walks off alone with the fusion tape, and he just starts pulling all the tape out and then just tosses it aside.
Yeah, he just rips it up and walks away.
Credits. Great.
That's it. Escape.
Nope. That's all a great look. There's kind of this like upbeat towards the end of there where it has like this like, I don't even know what to call it. There's kind of this like, kind of lone drum beat, and it's kind of like, it has like this building drive, and this like the last, it's a very different to that kind of tune there, where it's got this dun 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 dun.
You can get the whole soundtrack for this on iTunes. You can get all John Carpenter's soundtracks on iTunes.
Yeah,
they even did like remasters.
I believe you can still see it live because it's like the one thing John Carpenter does now. All he does now is play video games and then goes on tour with his son, and they play his music from his movies, and they have some original
stuff. That's great. I'd actually pay to see that.
It's fun because also it seems like he's having fun with video games, because I know Giant Bomb always have like, they have like a top 10 list at the end of the year, and he always submits his, and it's always like, it's not like new games, he just plays whatever, and he seems to like not know the history of them or whatever. It's just so, it's like, yeah, he's enjoying his life. Yeah, he doesn't want to make movies anymore, so. No. It's too much of a hassle.
Wasn't a good time sometimes, for sure.
And then, of course, hanging out with his kid and performing, that's got to be great. So,
yeah.
I'm not sure if he still does, but, like, if that's like the last thing John Carpenter is doing for the world that you can buy and go see is his band. I mean, he did come back a little bit, because there was some, like, I think on Showtime they had, like, some kind of, like, vague anthology series called, like, The Masters of Horror. And I think he did do an episode of that.
Yeah.
That I think people like, but I've never seen any of that show. I'm just kind of vaguely aware of it.
Yeah, I didn't. I've heard of it, didn't seek it out or see it, but that's because there's too many viewing options nowadays. Can't keep up with them all.
But yeah, great movie. Punched above its weight. I imagine it was successful, but I guess not enough to make all the sequels he wanted.
It was successful enough. But we got to remember, this was drowned in a sea of movies like this.
Oh yeah, you said this opened alongside Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Raiders of the Lost Ark, and Terminator came a few years later, and well, there was a lot of movies made like this, and this movie gets confused with a lot of those.
Yeah.
there's a lot of very inferior movies in this vein.
Yes.
That like nobody remembers, but everyone you see this is like, oh yeah, this is the good movie like this. Instead of all these shitty ones that look exactly like it but are I think terrible. This movie does this movie was made for the same money as those movies. This just makes it looks a lot better. And the storytelling's better and the acting's better. But yeah, so it's just kind of this is a movie that like had a resurgence, I think, in the early 2000s. I know a lot of people were talking about it. It was like, this is great. I was like, why don't they do another one of these? It's like, well, because they pissed the guy off that did it.
I mean, they did Escape from LA in like '96, I think.
Yeah.
But that movie's like it destroyed the franchise. I remember they wanted to do a prequel of like Escape from Cleveland about like one of the like, you know, one of the like other con jobs that like Kurt Russell ran or that Snake ran. It was probably supposed to be like kind of a Fast and Furious-esque movie or something like that, which sounds cool, but probably would have been stupid.
There's a whole like comic book universe that exists here that I've read. Some of them, like that. One of them is they wanted to steal the car that Kennedy was assassinated in from the museum because some collector wanted it in Las Vegas, and Snake Plissken was in on that job because it was for a massive amount of money. And yeah, there's a whole like separate universe that exists around this, but this is still like the original best thing.
Yeah, and like I said, people have done basically their versions of this. Like we said, Lockout did it. It was like President's Daughter in Space Prison, which that's a fun movie.
Yeah, that's actually I enjoyed that movie.
And then I remember like there's sort of a version of that where in Resident Evil 4 you have President's Daughter in Italian zombie town. You gotta get her out. People get injected with a virus that they have to get out in time. Of course then like the Solid Snake was just completely taken transferred over as into its own character, but it's very based on Snake Plissken. Like he's still called Snake, but
yeah.
What is his actual name? God damn, I can't remember. In the Metal Gear Solid, I should probably know that. But at some point, he goes undercover and he's like, "Call me S. Plissken," and then that's just like, okay, yeah, he's not even hiding it anymore.
No, basically, yeah, Kojima's like it's an homage to that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, everything to him is emotion, but it's like, he kind of does that like Tarantino thing where it's like, I like something from a B movie, and then I turned it into like something way different, more complicated and interesting.
Yeah.
What was other stuff? I'm recently playing a game that they came out with a expansion to Cyberpunk 2077 called Phantom Liberty, which is I guess I'll explain the whole concept of that. There's a place in Night City called Dogtown, which so in the Cyberpunk universe, there's a lot of shit going on. There's basically like two Americas, and one of them is in USA, the new United States of America. Also, the internet's all fucked and it doesn't exist anymore. So there's intranets. So there's a city has its own internet and it's blocked off from everything else. Nothing can come in. Because what's on the actual internet is some military AIs that got released and they'll just fry everything they touch. And so they put up what they call the black wall, so these AIs can't get in. And so you have a city that has its own internet, and like every city just has its own internet, but they don't connect to each other. If you're inside the city, you can use the internet. But also there's just now that the information is spread out. So now there's just information lost because the AIs have it or destroyed it or whatever. So in the middle of this conflict in between these two Americas, the new USA sent this special forces team into Dogtown in order to take over Night City, but then there was like a ceasefire, and then this like special forces group just stayed in this town and created their own city and split off from both. And now their own independent state. And then somebody hacks Space Force 1 and crashes the president's plane into Dogtown. And you gotta go in there and save the president.
Oh, wow. Involved.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's Cyberpunk 2077. It has to be way more complicated. It's really good. So, but yeah, like a lot of people love this idea. Keep coming back to it. Tons of like prison movies and prison movies where people have explosions in the neck. I believe that there's a Christopher Lambert movie like called Fortress is one of those. That's one of their things. I'm not sure if they have. I can't remember if they have explosions in their neck or if they just have automated turrets that kill people. um. What is it? Does Face Off have something like that? I don't know. There's exploding neck stuff and everything. So.
Yeah, it's kind of a thing. It bounces around.
Oh, they did that also in Suicide Squad. Um, exploding neck stuff. Town gets turned into apocalypse. They either go in and get them or they'll kill them. So that's basically out of this movie too. A lot of things have come off of Escape New York. It's a very influential movie. And yeah, I don't know. Maybe what Carpenter's second best movie if you have to rank them. I don't know. You have an affinity for Halloween, so I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, I would have to probably that sounds about right.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say that.
I'm trying to think of all the other.
Cinder probe.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm just trying to think of all the other influential things this movie did. But yeah, yeah. We got to send a probe into space containing the supercut of the imperfect collection that is the Verhoeven Effect. Nathan, what scene from this movie are we chucking into space?
We got to when Snake comes to Liberty Island, because it basically establishes the universe you're going into. It's like this is outside of New York, which is not almost as bad as in New York. It's just this authoritarian hell state that you have to survive in.
And then we can find us on Letterboxd, username VHE, 1 out of 5 stars. What does Escape from New York get?
This is another 5-star. This is a no-brainer.
You can find us at verhoeveneffect.com. We have listener support there. You can support us a month at 99 cents, $4.99, or $9.99. You can rate our podcast on whatever platform of your choice. You can rate us wherever you want, but they only listen to the highest rating. Remember, you control the algorithm. The algorithm doesn't control you. You can find us at Twitter at Verhoeven Effect. You can find us at Blue Sky Social at Verhoeven Effect. And you can find us at Facebook at Verhoeven Effect. And you can find us on YouTube at American Greed Factory. You can watch both this and that show live and unedited. So for the Verhoeven Effect podcast, I'm Colin.
And I'm Nathan.
Goodbye, America.
All right, start downloading this. Sending this. I'll be right back.
Okay.